It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. Lisa Edichico is here from New York, and CNET. All the way from the UK, Nate Langston of Bloomberg fame, and from the Vatican City in Rome, Father Robert Ballasare. It's a global episode. We'll talk about Netflix, what happened, and what's the future hold for streaming media. CNN Plus goes bye-bye in record time. We're going to try to find something that folded faster. Google's new Pixel smartwatch. Is it real or just a rumor? And should you buy an NFT? Maybe not. It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 872, recorded Sunday, April 24th, 2022. From the people who brought you Lickable TV. This Week in Tech is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like checking your baggage at the airport without a lock. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/twit. And by Audible. Audible lets you enjoy all your audio entertainment in one app. You'll always find the best of what you love or something new to discover. New members can try Audible for 30 days free. Download the Audible app and get started with a free trial at audible.com/twit or text TWiT to 500-500. And by Noom. Unlike other programs, Noom Weight uses a psychology-based approach to help people like me better understand their relationship with food and gives us the skills and knowledge we need to build a long-lasting positive habit. Sign up for your trial at noom.com/twit. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/twit. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. Got a great panel assembled for you. Let's say hello to Lisa Edichico. She is a senior editor at CNET. Hello, Lisa. I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
I missed you. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
What do you cover at CNET?
A lot of things, but mostly mobile devices. So phones, smartwatches, things like that.
Well,
but, occasionally I write about other things too.
There is a smartwatch story in the rundown. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Also with us from the UK, Nate Langston. He is a Bloomberg tech editor, does the UK tech show as well, and for some reason has a massive drum kit behind him. We've never yet got him to play on it, but hello, Nate. It's good to have you.
Hi. Thanks for having me. Yeah, one day it will happen. One day, I promise.
I think TWiT, like any good rock and roll show, should have a 20-minute drum break.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want a 20-minute drum break, then
we'll wander off, go play cards, have a drink,
you want to lose all your listeners and sponsors?
Then I'll solo.
I'll play some death metal for 20 minutes.
I love it. I think we'd only gain listeners. Also with us, it's great to have him from the Vatican, ladies and gentlemen, Father Robert Ballasare, the digital Jesuit. Belated Easter. Happy Easter to you. I bet you were fairly busy last Sunday.
It was a busy week, and of course, I am the senior tech editor for Vatican Tech News, which we cover all the latest
VTT,
technologies.
Yes.
Running water, toilets, clay pots, stuff like that.
Oh, there's been breakthroughs in the clay pottage of late. Lots to talk about with Father Robert. I guess the big story of the week really is a twofold story, all about the story of streaming. And what the hell is happening with it? First thing happens, Netflix, in their Q1 financials, revealed that for the first time ever, they lost subscribers, a couple of 100,000 subscribers versus 2.5 million expected. And, of course, it's the first time ever. They've gained every year since they were founded, I think. Immediately, the market reacted by killing Netflix value by almost a third. Might be more than a third by now. A huge plummet. And I guess the feeling is this is the beginning of the end for Netflix. which kind of surprises me. Netflix response is, well, we're looking at ad-supported programming, which would, for me, definitely kill Netflix. Seems the wrong way to go. You know, Netflix blamed there are a couple of things that clearly make a difference. The broad variety of streamers now. You have many, many choices. Disney Plus, Peacock, Hulu. Netflix is just one of them. You also have, so you have competition for them, but they've also been hurting Netflix by pulling back on the programs they own. Peacock pulled out The Office. Disney pulled out Marvel's content. So Netflix is losing a lot of its catalog to the competition. And then their answer, which was a good answer, was to make original programming. But they spent $13 billion last year on original programming. And it's kind of hard to imagine that that's a sustainable strategy. So Netflix in trouble. And this affects you too, Nate. Netflix is big in the UK.
It's big, but actually one of the things we were looking at this week is how subscriber numbers to all streaming services are really going down in Britain. And a lot of people are wondering, why is this happening in particular in the UK? And a lot of people are looking at the cost of energy in Britain, which went up by about 50% in April, which doesn't sound like it would necessarily impact streaming directly. But most households in the UK had their energy bills sort of go up by 50% literally overnight, and they're going to go up again in October by a similar amount. So one of the first things I think people have been looking at is, well, do we need this many subscriptions? Do we need Netflix and Disney Plus and Apple TV and all of these other things that we have? And I think a lot of the answers now is, well, no, we don't. And I don't necessarily think it dooms Netflix, because the numbers are still enormous. You know, we're still talking hundreds of millions of subscribers, but it's definitely a concern. And as you noted with the share price, which is something that we look at a lot, obviously at Bloomberg, you know, it started the year at something like 600 and it closed on Friday at about 200. So I mean, it's just absolutely annihilated, and a lot of very prominent investors have lost money, and notably lost money by selling at this loss and actually saying, you know what, we don't think this is going to get any better, so we're going to counter losses, you know, get out now. And some people have been saying that was a smart move, but it must be deeply challenging, particularly when you look at the wider market and the fact that streaming is growing. It's a sign that Netflix just cannot keep all these people to itself anymore. At least not consistently.
Bill Ackman is one of the investors. He's the lead at Pershing Square. He got into Netflix just a few months ago. Whoops. In January, bought 3.1 million shares. Shares have fallen 60% since then. He sold all those shares, netting a $400 million loss. Yikes.
Yeah, that's the chap.
But somebody like that will only do that if he says, look, there's only downside here. I see no upside.
This is the thing, and a lot of people, you know, particularly retail investors, will talk about, you know, buy the dip, and there's a lot of logic in that a lot of the time. But when something so disastrous comes along, as what happened this week with Netflix's figures and the forecast to lose even more subscribers, then the smart money sometimes is on, well, if you're going to lose something, lose the least amount possible. And that at least seems to be Ackman's strategy here. Whether or not that'll continue, who knows? Maybe this is an even bigger dip to buy.
I mean, Netflix has 3 C's that are a problem. You've got cost, you've got competition, and you've got content. Now, cost and competition, those are
Did you just make that up?
I just made that up.
That's really good.
But I mean,
that's exactly the 3 problems. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first 2 you can fix. You can price your service better to be more competitive. But the problem is content. And this is where it becomes a long-term issue for Netflix. Amazon and Disney, which are number 2 and 3, are fine. They've got plenty of content that is actually pretty dang good. Amazon just bought an entire catalog from Paramount, and Disney is never going to be running out of content in the next 15 or so years. But when you start looking at how Netflix has been stocking up its content, it's with, pardon my French, crap. It's horrible, horrible stuff. It's a lot of foreign programs that nobody wants.
They have some successful movies. They were able to lure Scorsese over and make a 3-hour film called The Irishman. They almost won an Oscar for Roma 2 years ago. They have some very successful streaming original content.
And that's great, but it only means I have to subscribe 1 month out of the year.
Right.
I can binge everything I want to watch on Netflix in 1 month, and then I'm done. So, where I am right now is I almost don't want to steal the password for Netflix from one of my friends.
Do you have Netflix?
I have Netflix. I'm not paying for Netflix.
So you left out, there's 3 C's, but there's also an R. It's like Creedence Clearwater, CCR. CCCR, which is revenue. And that's one of the things Netflix is trying to do, go after password sharing. They claim 100 million people are using Netflix with a shared password. I admit, my kids who had my password when they lived with me, they were part of my household. When they moved out, I didn't change the password on them. So they're still watching Netflix. But I have to say, I don't think those 100 million people are necessarily all going to become subscribers. I do like Netflix's apparent plan. They're trying this already in Central and South America, is to, instead of saying we're going to cut these people off, they're just going to charge you a couple extra bucks a month for the other people. So it's very likely that Dad, who's paying for the Henry and Abby, will pay a couple extra bucks a month for each of them, then have to make the phone call and saying, I'm cutting off your Netflix, kids. Get your own account. What do you think, Lisa? Is Netflix worth, what is it, $12 a month now?
I think it's hard because I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. It's all about the content. And I think, if Netflix does start charging more to have, more people on their account, just like you were talking about what they're piloting right now in some locations, I think this is going to be a big test for Netflix. I think we're going to figure out, how crucial is it really to people? Are they willing to pay more? I think you'll have a lot of those conversations of, like you were saying, Dad might call you up and say, hey, are you using Netflix? Do I need to upgrade, or can I just, cut you out?
Oh, that's a good way. Thank you for giving me the wording. Hey, are you using it still?
Yeah, exactly. I could see that happening a lot. But I do think the competition is a big part of it. And, Netflix was comfortable for a long time because they were really the first to popularize streaming. And they were also one of the first to have really good original shows like House of Cards. But it's, they obviously can't just keep doing the same things anymore because the competition has changed so much.
I think that's what the market is saying. Not so much that it's over for Netflix, but that the heyday of streaming is over. I mean, we had 2 very good years during COVID. Maybe they're feeling like, well, okay, but people aren't going to be staying home as much anymore, and they're not going to be paying because times are tight with the recession and inflation. They're maybe not going to want to pay that extra subscription. What's the first one to go? That's the real question.
Yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm. Well, I also think people sign up for one show and then they cancel, just like, we were talking about before. So I think that's part of it too. I think to really keep people in, they just need to have a really good catalog of good shows. Like Netflix is kind of like a cable replacement, right? Like people don't usually sign up to watch just one show and then, quit. I feel like that's something that you see more with like maybe Showtime or some of these other, streamers that were a little bit later to the game. But I think if Netflix really wants to keep subscribers from, just having that be the first one off the chopping block, they need to just make sure they have like a really big back catalog of stuff that can essentially, fill that cable hole for a lot of people.
The stock market Leo might have looked at the top 10 shows on Netflix in the U.S. It's always a bad sign when a network goes to reality programming, right? That's cheap.
Yeah.
And it's usually a kind of drive to the bottom. Number 1, Selling Sunset. Number 2, Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes. I don't know. I think The Marked Heart is fiction. Anatomy of a Scandal, probably fiction. Bridgerton's just hot. And The Ultimatum, I don't watch it. The Ultimatum, Marry or Move On, number 6. This is kind of looks like a bad sign.
I am the best boss.
Huh? Somebody say something? Oh,
I think that was my Netflix that for some reason managed to reach through here.
Oh, okay.
When I was trying to find what the popular equivalents in the UK were. I didn't.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why.
This is a what do they call it? Carousel. I haven't seen before. The top 10 shows in the US today.
Okay, so the top ones here are actually fairly similar in the UK.
Yeah.
Selling Sunset, Anatomy of a Scandal, the John Wayne, Heartstopper, Bridgerton, The Missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Netflix can fix this.
How?
All they have to do is move to a metered plan. $5 a month, 40 hours of programming. No one's going to share it if you're going to be using up your hours.
Well, that's an interesting idea. And then it's less, so maybe you won't get rid of it. And you could probably think of 5 hours to watch.
Exactly.
And most people like me are going to end up watching more than 5 hours probably. So
yeah, and so you go up to the next level.
Go to the next tier.
Also, Leo, we predicted this 10 years ago. Back in the early days of TWiT in cord cutters, when we were talking about cutting the cord, and we talked about the rise of streaming services, there was a prediction about how all of the studios are going to want to get on this. They see what Netflix has. They're going to want to start their own streaming services. It's going to take a while for them to build their catalogs, to build their technology. But eventually we're going to get to the point where people are going to start saying, I don't want to have 5 or 6 different subscriptions a month to watch all the programming I want. That's where we are right now. This is the culling. We've reached the bottleneck.
Is it over for cord cutting? I had a caller today on the radio show said, I just signed up for cable again because I couldn't find the shows I wanted. It was getting more and more expensive. Cord cutting no longer saves you money if you include the cost of internet. I think maybe it's the end of cord cutting.
I think I saw some report that I think said on average Americans spend $47 per month on streaming services. I mean, that's like getting into cable territory again. So
especially when you add the $40 or 50 or 60, in my case, for your internet access. Now you're at $100.
And also, if the cable companies are catching up to streaming and are offering more on-demand options and things like that allow people to watch what they want instead of just defaulting to whatever happens to be on right now, I feel like, there is a compelling case for just going back to cable instead of signing up for 5 different streaming services to get everything you want.
Yeah.
Have you seen Samsung TV?
I have not.
So it's something that I just bought my parents a brand new 70-inch TV for their house in Las Vegas. And they're actually, when I first installed it, and it took all of the information, where we were and what locality we were in, we got access completely free, no subscription, to about 3,000 channels over Samsung TV.
Wow.
And that's free forever, which includes local TV. And they've now cut the cable. They don't need anything. They've got everything they want, and they're not paying any subscription fees.
Now
that's not huge,
know,
but it's awesome.
I don't know if they know, but you know that the reason Samsung does this is because now they are getting marketing information from them and sending, right? I mean, that's where the revenue stream is, I would guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it tells you at the beginning, it tells you this is exactly what's going to be happening. This is what we're using.
But I think most people, if you got free locals, sure, I'll do that. You're going to sell my information back to advertisers? Well, I don't care if I get free TV. That's interesting. Do they still, Nate, forgive me my ignorance, do you still have to buy a license to watch TV in the UK?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, you do.
That's backward.
It is. I mean, there is a lot of controversy around this at the moment because the BBC is... I don't want to say it's having its lunch eaten by the streaming giants, but it's certainly having a lot of its food taken by the streaming giants. The BBC license fee, in a nutshell, it used to be you paid it, anyone who had a TV paid the license fee, and then your TV was free. And bear in mind, that has now moved to the point that it's streaming, it's back catalogue, it's the BBC News, it's radio, it's podcasts, it's all that other stuff, and it is entirely ad-free, and that's the thing that makes a big difference. Like, it is illegal even to show ads. Like, you cannot show ads on it. So it's a completely different model, and it does work, and it is actually very, very good value if you're someone who values BBC content. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who say it is a tax that shouldn't be paid. It should be a subscription model. It should be paid monthly. It should be privatized, and it should be made to compete better with the likes of Netflix. But it's withstood that. And a lot of the reason is because it's not just TV. It is a huge wealth of other things as well. And that's sort of kept people kind of happy with it for the most part, at least.
I feel like at a remove anyway, because we don't see everything. The BBC is the gold standard for broadcasting, both radio and television. And I would be glad to pay. What's the license fee? How much does it cost?
I think I'd have to check. So I just renewed it, but it renews automatically. It's something like about £140 a year.
Oh, that is a lot. That's Netflix territory.
A little steep. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in dollars, that's probably about $180 a year.
That's more than Netflix.
Yeah, it probably is more than Netflix, but it's almost incomparable to Netflix in terms of the subscription and what you get for it, because it is, you're paying for the newsroom. It funds everything the BBC does. And I'm not a BBC apologist. I should throw that out there. There's an awful lot I don't like about what the BBC does and the way the model is. But, there is a lot of educational stuff that comes with that. There is a lot of, international bureaus full of journalists, which obviously as a journalist myself is something that I know is not cheap and is very, very valuable, particularly, more so now than ever, possibly. So
if you want a democracy, you better damn well have a free, now I don't know how free and independent the BBC is, but you better have a free and independent journalism in your country to report on the misuse of power. Or otherwise you have nobody, you have no idea what's going on.
And the idea is that it's meant to be unbiased. It doesn't have a political agenda. A lot of people...
Is there political influence at all on the BBC?
I mean, there's political influence in everything, right? You can't get away from it. But the goal is that it doesn't have that influence. Personally, you can never get that right. I just don't think it's possible. And I don't think the BBC gets it right at all. And there is a lot of establishment-related problems with the BBC from the top, which is kind of out of step with what a lot of people experience in their day-to-day lives, as is also the case in politics. So there are parallels there.
If it were tax-supported, though, I think that'd be more of a peril than a license fee, I guess. I don't know. The
license fee, for all intents and purposes, is a tax.
It's a tax,
because
I guess.
It's a legal requirement.
Yeah.
But if you ask most people who would watch a show like This Week in Tech and who are in the tech world and who are generally pretty familiar with the way that the modern world works as far as tech and streaming goes, you would not find that many people who think that what the BBC does is bad. But there is a lot to be said for ways it could be brought up to date.
Our problem in the United States is all media is corporate. It tends to be owned, and increasingly so, by oligarchs. And so that's really a problem. And part of the problem that Netflix and streaming and cord cutting is having is that the people who distribute the content are increasingly buying the content creators. They are the one and the same, which now means they have a monopoly on the content and its distribution. It is not a good system. I have to say, here in the United States, CNN, which we're going to talk about in a second, has become become the Ukraine war porn channel. It's basically wall-to-wall Ukraine war. It's as if nothing else is happening. I saw not one story about Macron's run against Marie Le Pen, for instance, or even salacious stuff like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It was all Ukraine all the time. I started to watch BBC World News, and you're getting news. So I'm grateful. Thank you for paying your license fees, Nate.
Well, yeah, I mean, you pay for it in a different way as well, because if you look at something like BBC America or DVD sales and the license deals that go out.
Glad to pay for it. Yeah.
Those sorts of things also, they fold in. They're under a different arm of the BBC. Yeah. There's BBC Worldwide and so on. So there's a lot to be said for what the BBC does, and I personally would hate for it to go away in any significant way. But there are also ways I'd love to bring it up to date. And frankly, you could pay more. I mean, it's been around for decades and decades, and there are so many old programs that are just sitting in vaults and archives somewhere that aren't online. All the old Doctor Who's, they're always the ones that people bring out as an example. Like, that is an insane and huge back catalogue of extremely valuable IP that if you put all those online and said to international audiences, hey, pay this and you get all of this as well, that's going to please license fee payers. I'm sure please a lot of people who are watching this right now, being able to get ad-free, very low-cost access to a lot of old stuff. But you cannot please everyone. One size doesn't fit all. Blah blah blah. Insert your metaphor here, but it's interesting compared to Netflix.
I should, by the way, clarify. I think the war in Ukraine is extremely important. I'm not saying that it's unimportant. I'm saying we don't need wall-to-wall coverage. We need coverage, and we should have coverage. But there are other stories that are also important going on. And
we need dispassionate coverage.
Well, it's really clear now. I don't know what you get in Italy, but it's really clear now when I watch CNN that they've decided that war is good for ratings.
Oh, of course.
And just there's no news. It's just let's keep talking to people in basements and looking at blown up buildings. And I don't think it's, at the very least, if you want to cover Ukraine war, let's talk about what's going on and the geopolitics of it. And, there's lots more to talk about. CNN is partly this is happening because CNN is currently rudderless. And that's the other streaming story today. CNN Plus, which was launched last month with great fanfare and $300 million in marketing, has just been shuttered. They gave up, canceled. It's over.
Leo, I never even knew what CNN Plus was. I never heard about CNN Plus. So the first time I heard of CNN Plus was when they said it was going to shut down. I was like, oh, okay, sure, why not?
So it's a complicated story because it's part of that story of the rolling up of content by distributors. AT&T owned Time Warner, which owned HBO and CNN, divested of it because they realized we're a phone company, and Discovery bought it. So the problem was that Discovery, I think, is not yet running it, or they just started running it. And they could not tell Warner, don't launch this. We aren't going to do it. Get it, stop it. Don't stop. Warner was going to spend $1 billion to get subscribers. But it's not allowed if you're in the process of acquiring a company to tell the company how to be run. So they could say nothing. The day that the merger happened, they said, okay, and by the way, that's CNN Plus. That's got to go. It was kind of sad. There are a lot of people who quit their job to go to work for CNN Plus, including Chris Wallace. It's quite a stunning, I think, black mark on the reputation of CNN. But also, at the same time, CNN Plus didn't have any live news. So I think it was destined to die anyway. Apparently, what was happening in Warner, we had stories that from Axios and others that there were only 10,000 daily active viewers. The New York Times implies that was leaked by Warner to tank CNN Plus. I'm not Warner, by Discovery to tank CNN Plus. It's really quite a soap opera. So it just feels like the streaming world is in quite an uproar this week.
Yeah, there's the argument that whenever something gets shut down, that, it's embarrassing and it's a black mark because it's been shut down very quickly. And obviously there are other circumstances around this that make it more than just a business decision. It's the victim of a merger. It's probably conflicts of interest, not conflicts of interest, but conflicts of preference, in management. But often I think we see when companies shut down a product very quickly, it's often for the best in the long run. And you look back and you think, well, actually, this was never going to work. So we did well to kill it when it was young, and we take the learning that we did that's still very relevant, and we plug that insight, we plug that expertise, we plug that whatever you've got behind the scenes into the next new property, and then get ahead of where you would have been otherwise. We've seen that happen time and time again. I think, to be honest, we kind of saw it in the previous section talking about Netflix and the investor who sold at a loss. Like, get out now and maybe you'll be glad you did. And
cut your losses. Yeah.
Cut your losses. There's times where that doesn't make sense. And I did something on my podcast only this afternoon comparing this to Microsoft Kin, which, if you remember, in 2010 with Microsoft, it launched a whole new phone platform, physical hardware.
I actually owned a Microsoft Kin, by the way.
Save it. I hope you kept it.
I don't think I did. It was the second one, so it looked a little bit more like a normal phone than the original one. But yeah, I loved the idea of it, but it crashed all the time.
Yeah.
It really was. And I went to the launch for that in San Francisco, and they killed it within a few weeks. And actually, if you look back, that was probably a very good decision. It didn't help Windows Phone. It didn't help the Nokia stuff that came afterwards. But at the time, it was probably never going to succeed long term. And so they just killed it and said, right, you know what? Forget it. Let's not bother. Probably a good decision. Maybe this was too.
48 days it died, in 48 days. So I think the Kin actually lasted a little longer than CNN Plus.
It was like, it lasted 3 Scaramucci's. So, I mean, that's not bad.
I've always said that we are in a complicated transitional period between the days when you had 3 networks on your television and you turned the dial, ABC, CBS, and NBC, into this, infinite number of streaming channels, and there's a lot of uproar and shift and change going on, and we're just seeing that, I think, very clearly and very dramatically. What do consumers want? What do we want? What would be, Lisa? What would be the perfect, thing from our point of view?
Honestly, just having a lot of content that's really good, that's not that expensive. And I think that's what Netflix did well for a long time.
Do you want to buy individual shows, or do you want to buy a channel? Or
I mean, I think in a dream world, there would be one service that just has everything, but we obviously know that's not going to happen because of, ownership and rights and all of these other things. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, I do like the idea of having, maybe 3 or fewer services that just have everything that you need, because it just gets so complicated.
How it used to be.
That is, let's go back like maybe 7 years ago or 5 years ago or however long. But all of this I do feel terrible for all the people that, went over to CNN Plus and lost their jobs. And
yeah.
I do feel like this is kind of a turning point for the streaming wars. And I do think if there are new services in the future, it is going to be harder for companies to recruit talent for something like this after seeing what happened with CNN Plus.
The thinking at this point is that Discovery wants to make HBO Max. That Discovery kind of agrees with you, Lisa, and thinks we're just going to make one master subscription that you get CNN, you get everything with HBO Max. And I kind of agree with you. But how much would you pay? I mean, are they going to charge $50 a month for that, or?
I mean, I think it depends on what else you're subscribing to also. Like if I'm only subscribing to 1 or 2 things, I will pay more for those services. But if I need to have like 4 or 5 services, I don't want to pay more than $5 a month for something else.
Yeah.
What if you're already paying for it? What if we already have a subscription fee, a licensing fee like they do in the UK, except we call it Amazon Prime. We bought Amazon Prime because we wanted to be able to get our stuff faster, and Amazon Prime Video just came along with it for free. Now, I know it's expensive in the States. Here in Italy, it costs me €30 a year.
That's nothing.
And that's by free shipping, and that's all of the Amazon services, including Prime Video. So that's my streaming service. Not because I wanted that streaming service, but because it came with something else I already bought. I mean, that's
a great point, because
of Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have signed up for Amazon Prime Video unless I already had Amazon Prime. But now that I have it, I do find myself watching it like fairly often. Yep. Again, not enough to get it on my own, but since it comes with Amazon Prime already, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. I'm right with you there as well, Lisa. And we have similar in terms of the pricing strategy here. I mean, I get Prime for the same day shipping, and when there's something that comes up on Prime, like the new what's the thing that was Top Gear? The Grand Tour. The new Grand Tour comes out. It's just on there, and that's great, and it's nice to have. But I'd never sign up for that on its own. Absolutely not. I like the idea of a service where you get it's like a service that sits on top of the streaming companies, and you get like one hop a month, and you can hop from Netflix one month to Disney Plus the next month to Hulu Plus the next month and to Apple TV the next month. I mean, it would never work, because why would they agree to do something like that? And then there's all the technical problems. There isn't parity in the pricing models or anything. But in principle, I like that idea, because I would probably give overall more money to each of those companies than if I was maintaining one subscription with them all for the whole year. I don't think we'll see it, but in terms of answering the question, what would we want? I would love something like that for sure.
Also, I have to say that Amazon Prime Video in Italy has a way better catalog than Amazon Prime in the United States. I get all of Star Trek, so Picard and Discovery, and all of the sci-fi series that I enjoy, everything from Upload to The Expanse. So it kind of depends where you're located in the world, which only means it depends on what kind of VPN you have.
And that general approach also kind of reminds me of Apple TV Plus as well. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but since Apple gives you, I think it's a full year that you get for free when you buy a new Apple device. Right. That's a really long time. I mean, I guess the idea is you're already buying an iPhone or an iPad or whatever. And by the time the free trial is up, you probably not forget that you have it, but you're so used to watching it, if you did fall into it, that it's like, oh yeah, I'll pay $5 a month to keep that. So it's a little different than Amazon, but the same in that you're paying for something else and then you happen to get that service.
And also that Apple and Amazon don't have to make money on their streaming services. So Netflix, that's it, right? That's all they've got. But Amazon, Apple, and I guess to some degree Disney, it's this incremental income for them, or they even can sell it at a loss because they're going to make it up with sales in other areas. Apple TV is spending not as much money as Netflix, but they've gotten up to several $1 billion a year. And actually, I have to say, Apple TV is starting to look better and better. There's some shows on Apple TV now, which I would say are as good as anywhere else. I couldn't say that for the first year or two.
Yeah. Severance alone was amazing. Severance. Yeah.
Wow, that ending. I wasn't sure about the show because it's kind of sterile at first. But by the time I was of the last episode, I'm like, you can't stop now? You must not. And Slow Horses, which they've just put out, which I was sure they bought from the BBC, but in fact, no, they produced themselves, is every bit as good as any BBC spy drama. They got Gary Oldman to do TV. So, but that's an advantage because Apple can spend this money. That's not their business. Amazon can spend this money. Amazon, by the way, is spending more than anybody for this new Lord of the Rings. They spent $1 billion just for the rights, and I can't. And then now they're making. I can't remember what the per episode price is, but it's
something like $250 million an episode.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And I'm with you on the Apple TV thing, by the way. Invasion. I've got one more episode of that left to watch, and if I wasn't doing this, I'd be watching.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's the one service I uncancelled. I did cancel Apple TV. I canceled Disney Plus. I canceled a couple of others. I went back to Apple TV, and it was because of Invasion.
There's one other thing Apple TV has not, one little ace in its sleeve it hasn't pulled out, which is sports. What's interesting is none of these competitors are doing live sports yet. Amazon Prime has started to do it. And now Apple, they've got baseball, and the rumor is strong that they're going to get Sunday Ticket, which is a lot of football away from DirecTV. That could really put them over the top. Sports is something people do pay for and are willing to pay for live sports.
Netflix could do live F1. They've
got that show, Drive to Survive.
A hit show. Yeah. That actually could be a cash cow for them if they could work that.
Oh man, I have to. Because F1 in the U.S. It was just in Italy, Imola at Emilia Romagna, but it's at 6 a.m. here, so I have to tape it. And don't tell me what happened because I haven't. I started the race, but I haven't watched it. But you're right, F1 has huge potential because of that Netflix show. I would say they probably doubled their audience all of a sudden because of Drive to Survive. And
if I can just really point out something just to correct myself on what I said, the $250 million about Amazon, that's what they paid for the rights to Tolkien, according to Hollywood Reporter. But it is they're saying $650 million budget for season 1 alone.
And that's how many episodes? 10. If it's 10 episodes, $65 million a show is astounding, especially for an unproven property. Yeah. I think that they ended up spending more than that on Game of Thrones, but that's a lot of money. And Amazon can afford it, you know? And they don't even have to make it back with subscriptions, and that's the key. All right, let's take a little break. It's fun to talk about TV, but we're going to have to talk about Elon Musk. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but we have to. And there'll be other stories, too. It's really wonderful to have Lisa Edichico here. She is, of course, at CNET, senior editor there. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, wonderful to be here.
Yay.
Thank you again for having me.
Yay. Also with us, Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit from his home somewhere high above the Vatican. Not that high, not all the way up, just, halfway to heaven. It's great to see you. And Nate Langson, who is tech editor at Bloomberg. You were talking about VPNs, Robert, our sponsor for this segment, ExpressVPN. The 3 reasons you'd use a VPN. There's security, there's privacy, and there's the ability to watch Doctor Who. And I would say all 3 are very, very important. But one of the benefits of ExpressVPN is they are in more than 90 countries. So when you use ExpressVPN, it's really easy to put it on your phone, on your smart TV. You can even put it on your router, on your laptop, on your desktop. When you use ExpressVPN, you can say, I want to be in London right now. And then if you've got a Netflix subscription, you can binge all the Doctor Who you want on Netflix UK. That's just one of the many reasons to get a good VPN. But I have to tell you, I want to underscore good, because there are lots of awful VPNs, the free VPNs that spy on you and sell your marketing information, the VPNs that don't invest in infrastructure, not ExpressVPN. They're not free, but that money goes to making them the best VPN out there, the only one I use. You can even put it on your router and protect your whole home, and it's so fast nobody's going to complain. That's really, really important with a VPN. Not only do they invest in all those servers and all that bandwidth, they rotate their IP addresses. That's very important too, because the privacy angle on a VPN, when you're using ExpressVPN, you're not using your IP address when you make those Google searches or you visit those websites. You're using their IP address. And because they rotate IP addresses, they spend the money to get a whole bunch of them. You are never the same person twice. That's real privacy. If you're not using a VPN, your internet service provider knows everything you do. Google knows. Google says, hello, welcome back. You don't, the incognito mode is not incognito. You need ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like checking your baggage at the airport without a lock. Yeah, sure, nobody's going to go through your bags unless they do. And just think of all the things they'll find. That's not mine. When you go to online without a VPN, ISPs see what you're doing. Google knows who you are. With ExpressVPN, incognito mode truly is private. Your identity is anonymized by a secure VPN server. And when you find out about the technical details of what ExpressVPN does to protect your privacy, I think you'll be very, very impressed. They just had an article in Bleeping Computer about this. Fascinating. They have a custom Debian distro running on their servers. It runs a VPN server they call their trusted server. It runs it in RAM, and it's sandbox, so it can't write to the disk. And then every day, the whole hard drive gets wiped. Anyway, they reinstall the entire distribution, so there is no trace of your visit to ExpressVPN. That's real privacy. Security, too. You can use ExpressVPN anywhere, and no matter who else is on that network, they can't see what you're doing. Secure your online activity. Use the only VPN I recommend for privacy, for security, and for watching, TV shows in other jurisdictions. Visit expressvpn.com/twit right now. That's expressvpn.com/twit. 3 extra months free when you buy a 1-year package. It is the number one trusted VPN. It's the only one I trust, the only one I use. expressvpn.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support. I got up this morning and there was already, I'm thinking, is today the day we don't have to mention Elon Musk on Twit? Is it going to be?
Nope.
Nope. There's already Elon chatter because early this morning, apparently, he tweeted this 2 words and an ellipsis, moving on. And all the pundits immediately jumped on that. This is, by the way, Elon loves this attention. This is, I'm convinced, the main reason he does this. Saying, he's moving on. He announced this week that he had enough money, that he had the resources to buy Twitter, that he had banking assurances from Morgan Stanley and others. We thought, moving on from buying Twitter? No. 3 hours later, he says, moving on from making fun of Bill Gates for shorting Tesla while claiming to support climate change action. Now, look, this is a mean tweet, but it's kind of apt. Yesterday, Elon tweeted this picture of Mr. Gates in a blue polo shirt. Hey, look, I'm no guy to say anything about a stomach, but he's got a little bit of a belly. And Elon said, looks just like the pregnant guy emoji. And he kind of does. Elon is like 5. He's got the mentality of a 12-year-old. I don't personally think he should own Twitter. I think that's a terrible idea. I think oligarchs should not own media. What do you think, Lisa? Is he going to buy Twitter, or is all this just fun and games?
Honestly, it's hard to say. I do think, I agree. I do think, it's probably best if Elon Musk does not own Twitter. But I think what's interesting is why he's interested in buying Twitter as well. And I know you've talked about Elon a bunch, so you've probably touched on this already, but he keeps kind of talking about how he sees a lot of potential in Twitter. And I think that kind of made a lot of people think about what Elon would do with Twitter if he actually bought it. And I think that's something that's on everyone's minds right now. He's talked about, he's been very vocal about his thoughts on free speech and content moderation, and making the Twitter algorithm public, right? I think he, unless I'm mistaken, I think he has kind of talked about maybe making it open source or something like that, which would be a really big shift. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where things go.
Yeah, I think actually Jack Dorsey is more interested in making Twitter open source, but he's not the CEO and he's not even on the board anymore.
Right.
So we don't even we don't even care. I'm going to call Elon a bullionaire because he's a billionaire full of bull. We'll give credit on that to actually I first read it in Ian Bogost's post on the Atlantic, Elon Musk Baloney King, but actually he gives credit to Benedict Evans, who's a great tech blogger, a bullionaire. So one of the things people thought Elon might be talking about, because he talks a lot about free speech, is bringing back conservative voices like the former president. But then I read that House Republicans are just as nervous about Elon Musk as Democrats are. Jim Jordan sent a letter to Twitter saying you must preserve all records about Musk's bid to buy the company, setting the grounds for a potential congressional probe of the acquisition. So even the right isn't happy about Elon's free speech. I think he's trolling us. What do you think, Father Robert? Do you think he's trolling us?
No. I think
you think
this
he's serious?
Is Elon being authentic. No. I think that Elon has a history of being pure id. He lets his id control his ego. He loves the pleasure principle.
He
loves making short quick points. He's low-key. He likes chaos.
Yeah, the monkey trickster.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, this is a person who grew up in a life of privilege. He grew up wealthy. He's used to having all of his needs met when he wants them met. He's used to having people take his meetings anytime he wants to take his meetings. So for him, this is all part of the same game. Now, the people who cheerlead Elon, I get that. I understand. He's successful. He's wealthy. He seems brilliant.
Well, we have
He's
things to
like
thank him for.
Jobs.
Tesla has promoted electric vehicles. Without Tesla, I don't know we'd be where we are today, where we really need EVs. I don't know if we'd be this far advanced. SpaceX is a huge success, right?
Which is great. And I want to reward him for that. People should be rewarded for coming up with brilliant ideas and for executing them. I'm absolutely not against that. What I am against is when people build up privilege and wealth by doing those things and then use that privilege and wealth to make it more difficult for everyone else to do the same. When you have a big player, a billionaire,
to pull the ladder up,
American oligarch.
Pull the ladder up behind him. Yeah.
And that's what this is. If you allow Elon to own Twitter, own any social media company, you are essentially recreating the disaster we have with Rupert Murdoch. That never should have happened. I don't want part two. And unfortunately, that's what this would be. Elon, in saying that he wants free speech, is essentially saying, well, I want anything that the market will bear. Everything that the market will bear does not work well for free speech. That is not free speech. Yeah. In the United States and our Constitution, we have definite limits on free speech. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater and call it free speech. That's essentially what Elon is saying we should allow on Twitter.
Should Jeff Bezos have been allowed to buy the Washington Post?
Yes. It's very different there. Because
Steve Jobs' widow owns the Atlantic, which I just quoted, Maureen Jobs.
Right. But look at how they're owning it. There is a block between ownership and editorialship. Elon doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
If you look at the way Elon's companies work, the ownership is editorials. He controls everything from top to bottom. At any point, because he is id and super id, at any point he can pop in and implement some crazy idea. That cannot be how our media works, how our press works, how our expression of free speech works.
Yeah. It does, and that was the premise of Ian Bogost's column in The Atlantic. It is a bad thing for democracy. We need democracy. We need, and I would say, and we need good journalism, as I just said, to bolster democracy so that the people in power are called to, account. Thank you. And I fear that we're losing both in this country. Without a free press to speak truth to power, the oligarchs win. And it's pretty clear that's what the oligarchs are trying to do is buy up media. So I'm hoping Elon is not, I'm hoping he's not serious, that he's just messing with us. And I sincerely hope he doesn't buy Twitter because I don't think any good will come of that. Nate, Twitter has outsized in its importance here in the United States. It doesn't have that many subscribers. It's 1/15 the size of Facebook. But unfortunately, it's the media that pay attention to Twitter and give it an outsized influence. Is it the same in the UK?
By and large, it still is, yeah, because
lots of stories come out of Twitter, and Elon gets. If nobody's paying attention to Elon, he tweets something and everybody's paying attention to Elon. The former president did the same thing.
As long as the audience is in any way global, then a newsroom kind of has to pay attention to Twitter, even if you're local. Yeah. So yes, but there is a small anarchist in me that thinks it would, for a very short period of time, be really quite entertaining to see Elon Musk own Twitter, but that would very quickly spiral, I think, into something that is not entertaining in the slightest. And the other question, the more serious side of me also thinks, what is it about Twitter specifically about that he would want to do with it? Because he has the means, certainly has the motive, has the resource, has the ability to set something up, to create something from scratch and attract a lot of people to it very, very quickly. Why, if he wants to run a successful business like that, why not build one? Why not start it? He could very easily do it. So there's something specific to Twitter, and that's why I think he's serious about wanting to buy it, and that's why I think it's probably a good idea, as has already been said on this show just now, why it's probably not a good idea.
I have to say I agree with you. It would be entertaining until it's so horrific we would be going, stop.
Well, I think it comes down to how influential Twitter can be in a weird way. And I think, Twitter tends to draw a lot of people, I feel like, tend to lump it into like the same category as Facebook and other social media platforms. But like you were saying, Leo, it's not really the same, because I feel like the people who really pay attention to Twitter the most are journalists, people in the tech industry. It's not really, the social network where people go to post things about their personal life all the time, the way you might on Instagram. So I think Elon sees that, and he sees it as kind of a microphone. And, I honestly think that a big part of the reason why he's so interested in Twitter is because of that influence. As we just talked about, the former president and Elon Musk himself, when they tweet something controversial, it's news. There's a whole news cycle that's built around it, right? You don't really get that from Facebook and some of these other social media platforms. So I think that is the main reason, is for the influence that Twitter can have.
Is Twitter biased against the right? Somebody in the chat room says Twitter blocks everything today that doesn't fit the woke narrative.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. And I would ask one question of everyone who has that opinion. Define what the woke narrative is.
Yeah.
You ask 15
I don't know what it
people
is, but I know it when I see
the woke
it.
narrative.
Yeah.
You get 15 different answers.
Yeah.
The woke narrative is, well, I don't like that, so it's woke.
Right.
Okay, well, no. How about this? If you do not communicate in a civil way, people will block you. I have a block bot that automatically does it for me. I have people that have created numerous accounts trying to get around it just so they can say, it's not fair that you have a block bot. Well, that's silly. If you can't communicate with me in a way that is going to encourage a civil conversation, why would I want to waste my time speaking with you?
Elon says Twitter is biased against conservatives. If you actually look at it, and there was just a study by professors at MIT and Yale called Is Twitter biased against conservatives? The challenge of inferring political bias in a hyper-partisan ecosystem. The study basically concluded just what you just said, Father Robert. Twitter doesn't block people because of what they say. It blocks them because of how they say it, which is fair, right?
Yeah.
Block if you're abusive, I don't care which side you're on, block them.
Yeah, and that's what my block bot does. I've looked at what it's blocking. It's just looking for sentiment. It's looking for how things are being expressed.
Yeah.
And it's blocking about 50-50 people on the left and on the right. I don't want people yelling at me. There's nothing that comes productive out of you yelling at me. If you want to have a great conversation, we can go back and forth. If you want to explain why you feel the way that you feel, I actually want to know that. I become more intelligent. I become more informed about the world by hearing opposing viewpoints. I don't learn anything by someone saying, oh, that's just because you're a pedo priest, or that's because you're woke, or that's because, okay, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And so when people are saying Twitter is oppressing XYZ voice, what they really mean is I feel like people aren't listening to me scream into the ether. And guess what? No one should listen to you scream into the ether. You should learn how to express yourself.
So going back to our conversation, Nate, about the BBC, I would love to see a way in the United States that we could have a media that was not corporate bound, was not run by and owned by oligarchs, not run and owned by government either, because that's not the solution. It's got to be able to speak truth to power, but somehow independent, fair, and free.
Don't you have PBS? Isn't that what PBS is supposed to be?
No, it's supposed to be. And I guess to some degree, PBS is more balanced than anything else. Although if you watch, for instance, they have a nightly news hour, the PBS News Hour, the sponsors of which are all major U.S. corporations. So do they have influence? Well, there have been some studies that say PBS only brings on spokespeople from major U.S. corporations or think tanks funded by major U.S. corporations. The influence of big business on the public discourse in the U.S. is absolutely outsized.
Right.
It is. From what I hear, yes. I think that is also the case here, but from a different standpoint. I think that essentially it boils down a lot of time to money and privilege and where you were educated. Because if you look at a lot of the large media companies in Britain, some of them are owned by American giants. Channel 5, for instance, one of the main terrestrial broadcasters in the UK is owned by, I can't remember who owns it now, but it's definitely US owned. Channel 4 has been in talks to be taken private because that was set up in part to be a free service that basically makes the content that no other broadcaster would make. It's one of the reasons it's quite unusual, never the most popular, but always
Paramount owns Channel 5.
There you go. So Paramount owns that in the UK as well.
Wow.
And then on the other side, you've got an establishment like the BBC that, it always kind of tends to be run and influenced by people who have large political sway.
Right.
They don't have advertising. Product placement is illegal. It's things like that make the British landscape different, but it is equally influenced, I think, by a different type of power, but it's probably equal in size.
Leo, we had this discussion in the United States not too long ago because we have PBS, and PBS is still the most unbiased news source in our country.
I think that's fair. Yes.
I think that's fair to say.
Yes.
And remember, I remember there was one time where they had Archer Daniel Midland as the main sponsor of the PBS NewsHour. And they were doing stories about what ADM was doing wrong and illegally.
Okay.
I'm like, I like that. I love to hear that. But what was it? 2 years ago, PBS ran a series about, I don't even remember what it was, but it was a darling of the MAGA community. And there was this huge campaign, defund PBS, take away tax dollars from this woke narrative. And the thing is, PBS had to remind them, we're supported by sponsors. We don't take your tax dollars. But even that became part of the anger machine of, the liberals have invaded PBS, which used to be a neutral news source. And it's like, PBS is at a crossroads now. They see where this is going. They're going to lose corporate support. They're going to lose public support, and they're going to cease to be a voice in the news, which they desperately need to be. So what's the other option? Take corporate money, take more corporate money, take the corporate money that will actually have conditions on what they can report on the news. And there's no good solution for us right now.
Yeah. I think it's a warning sign. Democracies do not flourish if there isn't a free press. Moving on. Let's move on from media, because we've been talking about that a lot. Let's talk about Apple. Apple is telling developers, when I first saw this headline, I thought, oh, good news, that they're going to pull apps that are out of date, that are old from the App Store. But now I'm starting to think maybe this isn't such a good plan. There are certainly a lot of apps in the Apple Store that haven't been updated in years. Some of them don't work properly, but they're not all abandonware. And developers are starting to say, wait a minute, you mean I have to update my app even though it doesn't need it just to keep it on the App Store? This is especially true of games. Here's a Protopop Games tweet. I feel sick. Apple just sent me an email saying they're removing my free game, Motovoto, because it's more than 2 years old. That's not fair. It doesn't need to be updated, and people still download it.
I think this should be a simple solution to this, which is it's a check-in. Like, hey, your app's still live, right? You still happy with it? Any changes to make? You want, maybe force just to check that it still works, like an approval process, but on a diluted level, and that's it. Yeah. It doesn't need to be updated. It's kind of like a news story. You have published on, updated on, and that's quite helpful. Do that with apps. Published on most recent date, validated, checked for compatibility on such and such a date. Why shouldn't that be a problem? I 100% agree with it. It's ridiculous. Should not be pulled. I'm 100% with this developer on this one.
I also feel like it's not like a one size fits all kind of an issue. And I think that's part of it too, is like if there's a game that people love and it's still working properly and it's still functioning and people are still playing it, that's very different than, I don't know, maybe an email app or something that isn't being maintained and isn't working or might have like a bug in it or something like that. So I do think that one size fits all approach is going to be difficult to apply here.
This is part of Apple's problem, is that the success of the App Store has been so huge, and there are so many apps in there. I can understand the desire to clean up the App Store, to prune out the weeds, but you just can't at scale. You have to make arbitrary rules like, well, if it hasn't been updated in 2 years, it must be out of date. Costa Eleftheriou, who's been very critical of the App Store, he wrote a program called Flick Type Keyboard, which was a keyboard for the watch designed for visually impaired users. He says Apple removed it because it hadn't been updated in 2 years. Meanwhile, games like Pocket God have not been updated by the developers for 7 years, but they're still on the App Store. But I think those are the kinds of things that are going to happen at this scale. It's very difficult.
But there are
if the app,
go ahead, Nate, then Lisa.
There are much bigger problems on the App Store than an app that works fine that you can still download and use, not having been updated for 2 years. Copycat apps or apps that are just garbage. Like, there is so much bad app content on the App Store and on the Google Play Store as well, that they do far better to just do a purge of apps that have not been downloaded and are just clogging up search results.
Go. Maybe use that. Maybe use that as the criterion. Nobody's downloaded this in 3 years. Maybe it's time to remove it. Yeah,
that would be, for me at least, that would make more sense. Get rid of that. Get rid of the clones that you can really, really game.
Oh, man, there's so many Wordle clones. I thought they got rid of them, and then more sprang up, and they're not free.
They're not. And look at the titles and the names. Like, you can game this like 90s SEO, putting different words in the meta tags. Like, it's really, really bad. It's really bad.
There's also the larger question of some games are art, even if they haven't been updated in years. If they're still playable, it's a work of art. It's you don't ask Picasso to update. Well, you couldn't, but you wouldn't ask Picasso to update a painting just because he finished it. Lisa, we interrupted you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to say, it's one thing if an app is in danger of possibly not working anymore because it hasn't been updated in 7 years. Maybe, if it hasn't been updated that long, there's a chance it won't, this is just a hypothetical scenario, but I could see Apple doing that if there's a chance it wouldn't be supported by the next version of iOS or something like that. I think Apple has part of why it's so strict in its policies is because it doesn't want you to have to sift through all of these apps that don't work or don't function properly. Like when you go to the App Store, there's a certain level of trust and whatever you download is going to run smoothly and it's designed and optimized for these devices. So I get that Apple really wants to crack down on making sure developers keep up and keep their apps updated. But going back to what Nate was saying, there's bigger problems. Obviously, copycat apps and clone apps are a much bigger issue, but I think it all falls under that same umbrella of, there is a certain level of trust, but at what cost does that come to the developer community too? I mean, developers have not been that happy with Apple over the past couple of years. And I think, that's also part of, this is just kind of adding fuel to the fire in that regard. But yeah, that's all I was going to add.
It's taken me.
Leo, I want to go the other way.
Okay. Go ahead, Robert.
I
Nate.
want both Apple and Android, not just to remove apps that are not updated on their stores. I want them to remove them from my phone. So because I've got apps on my phone that have been transferred from phone to phone.
You want us to do your job. I'm not.
Exactly.
Yes.
Spring clean the whole dang nuke it from orbit is what I'm saying, Leo.
But I just downloaded Slay the Spire. All right.
I wouldn't want any company to go that far, but I do agree that it would be nice if there were more tools built into these operating systems that helped you realize like what's on your phone and how old some of those apps might be. Because even as a tech journalist, I have so many apps on my phone that I don't use, or maybe I downloaded them once for a specific story that I was working on and then I forgot about them. So it's a lot. It's a burden on people to do that themselves. So I would love to see more of that in iOS and Android updates.
I also have turned on the thing that says if anybody in my family downloads an app, which means there's an interesting, surprising number. Well, let's put it this way. Lisa, a couple of days ago said, I didn't just buy Tinder. I said, why? I said, I didn't think you just bought Tinder. She said, well, it says I just bought Tinder. I said, I hope you didn't buy Tinder. It turns out our 19-year-old son bought Tinder. And it showed up on all our phones, though. So it just, that got turned.
Wait, do you have to buy Tinder? I thought Tinder was a free app.
Well, for some reason, he's paying $10 a month. Maybe it's Super Tinder. Tinder Pro.
Tinder Plus?
Tinder Plus. I don't know. I wouldn't know either. You and I, neither of us know. We're going to talk about... Lisa, do you have anything to say about Tinder Plus?
I was going to say, I'm with Robert on this one. I thought it was free. So hopefully it's not a scam app or something like that.
Oh, God, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I have found 3 of Apple's own apps that it would have to remove under its own policy just in the time we've been talking
Apple's
about
apps, that's right.
Wow.
Remember the remote? Apple Remote wasn't updated for 5 years because the guy was busy.
There's one here called Indoor Survey, published by Apple. That's marked as 2 years old, so that would have to go. There's a Texas Hold'em game Apple released, apparently to great fanfare, according to some of the reviews.
I don't remember that. Wow.
Yeah, well, apparently
Hold'em?
neither does anyone else because it hasn't been updated for 2 years. So
there you go.
There you go.
Oh, the chat room saying, oh, he bought Tinder Silver.
Okay. Is that like a cougar finder?
Yeah, cougar finder. Exactly. Let's take a little break. And we will have more. Great panel. Nice to see you, Nate Langson, from the UK, tech editor at Bloomberg. This is a very international show. I like this. You're in, tell me again what part of England you're in.
I'm in a lovely little town called Broxbourne, which is slightly north of London. Nice. And it's mostly trees and birds and animals. And
it sounds wonderful. Sounds lovely. Yeah. Can you take the train into town?
I can, if I want to. Or I can go and walk down the canal for part of it.
Oh, how nice. Get yourself a little boat, row down the Thames.
There's people who live on the houseboats around here as well. Yeah,
nice.
it's great.
Sounds great.
Deer and all sorts.
Yeah. Also with us, Father Robert Balaser. He's in Rome, actually a little tiny place called Vatican City. Up above you're in the top floor of the Jesuit house. Is that where you are?
This is actually not just the roof of the Jesuit house. If you were to go to Google Earth right now and look at our house, you could see my office because it's like a little tower on the roof.
Now I'm going to have to do
behind me,
that.
this is actually a window. If I were to open up the window, you could see St. Peter's behind me.
What's your three words for the location?
Oh my gosh, that's right. I should figure that out.
You should know. So I
totally,
can quickly go there. How would I, if I had the longitude and latitude, I guess I could go there.
I think Google Earth actually gives you the longitude.
St. Peter's.
1 second.
Not St. Petersburg,
Peter's.
Florida. St. Peter's, Vatican City. St.
Yeah,
Peter's
you're
Basilica.
looking for Casa Generalizia della Compagnia de Gesù.
Well, yeah, it's easy for you to say. Is that Latin? Whoa!
no.
Here we are.
Oh.
Here we
There
are.
we go. Okay, so
Now you're down here,
from
right?
here,
Somewhere around
we're
here.
on the left side. Okay, you see where you see all those tennis courts right there?
Yeah.
Those soccer fields?
Yeah.
Okay, that building that the blue pin is on. Move your mouse over to
Yeah.
the right
Oh.
there. That's us. That's us. So zoom
The
in on
RC.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now move down a little bit.
Yeah,
Down.
yeah.
Down. Right there. That square. I'm inside that.
The big one or the little one?
No, the big one. That's my office.
Wait a minute, let's look in the window, see if we can see him. Oh, I can't get any closer. Look at that. That's where you are right now.
That's where I am right now.
So jealous. Is there a good gelateria down the road or anything?
There are two. One is called Old Bridge and the other one is called Camilla.
Wow, look at this. I can't believe it. Look where you are.
You can come visit anytime you want. And that's our garden. To the
That's
left-hand
pretty.
side. That's
You
where
can
all
wander around
the
in there.
Vaticanats live.
That's where the cats are. Okay.
That's
and
where
who's
the
the
cats are.
statue of?
That's Jesus. We gotta do that.
I've heard of him. Okay. I'm surprised there's only one. Okay. Let's take a little break. Also lovely to have Lisa Chico here. In fact, I'm going to put you to work in a second, Lisa, because there are rumors. There are rumors floating around, and I mean around. But first, a word from Audible. We love Audible. Audible's been a sponsor for our shows for, I think, more than a decade. Just the best place to get audio entertainment, whether it's audio books, performances, bestsellers, to celebrity memoirs, mysteries, thrillers, motivation. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere. You'll discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, exciting new voices in audio. You can listen to Audible while traveling, working out. I kind of miss it. I've been an Audible member since 2000, 22 years now. I used to listen when I commuted into San Francisco to Tech TV, and I kind of miss it because I would get a couple of hours at least, sometimes as much as 3 or 4 hours a day in the car listening to great audio literature, audio books. I'm going to make a recommendation because I'm listening to, maybe you know this one, Father Robert. Do you know the Bobaverse?
I love the Bobaverse.
I love the Bobaverse. The Bobaverse, the premise of the Bobaverse is fascinating. It's a Neumann probe. The idea is this guy, Bob Johansson, very successful game developer, signs a contract to have his head frozen, just in case, because he just sold his company. He's got extra money. He's in Vegas for a trade show, signs the contract. And I don't think it's a spoiler because it happens in the first 5 pages. Gets killed immediately, run over by a car. His head is frozen. Next thing he knows, he wakes up 100 years later, and he's got no body. He's an artificial intelligence made out of his brain. And he goes, and the story is fantastic. He replicates himself. They go out and explore the universe. They meet alien civilizations. They meet hostile aliens. There's space warfare. That there's also a lot of humor in it. And you got to listen to it because Ray Porter reads it. He's the guy who did The Martian. You'll recognize his voice.
Mr. Johansson, it's Bob. Please, you're not talking to my father.
I love his delivery. That's what's so cool about audiobooks from Audible. You're not reading them, you're listening to them. They're performances, and they are so great. Audible includes thousands of podcasts for popular favorites and exclusive new series. That, by the way, the Bobaverse is an Audible exclusive. It wasn't slated for an audiobook, so Audible brought them in and got Ray to do it and recorded it, all 4 volumes. A 5th volume is on the way. Audible gives members a chance to listen to and discover new favorites and explore different formats. Part of what makes your membership so much more valuable, things like the exclusive Words plus music series, or maybe a podcast you never thought of or considered before, even theatrical performances. Now, as an Audible member, you could choose a title a month to keep from their I should emphasize, to keep. I have been a member for 22 years. I have more than, I think I'm up to 600 in my library. And I go back. When Dune came out, I thought, I'm going to re-listen to Dune. I'll go back and listen to them again. They're yours as long as you're a member to keep in your catalog the best sellers, the new releases. You can download them. You can stream them. You can listen anywhere on any time, on any device. I even listen on my Amazon Echo. I just say, Echo, read to me, and it'll pick up where I left off, which is awesome. I'm listening in the car. I get home. I say, read to me. It'll pick up right where I left off. 2022 is all about celebrating our newfound self-awareness, making positive change. Audible helps make space for what matters to you. It's a destination not just for entertainment, but for wellness. Whether you're looking to soul search, be inspired, work toward new goals, unwind, or simply be entertained, Audible can make you happy. It'll certainly make you smile or cry or sigh. It's got it all. You'll find the best of what you love or something new to discover. If you want to try it, new members can try Audible for 30 days free, which, by the way, with the new Audible originals, means lots of listening, hundreds and hundreds of volumes you can listen to. Download the Audible app. Get started with a free trial. Audible, audible.com/twit. That Audible Plus catalog is a huge boon, and you can listen all you want. Or you can text TWIT to 500-500. AUDIBLE, audible.com/twit, or text TWIT to 500-500 to start your free trial. You'll also see on my library, I just bought Neil Stephenson's Termination Shock. I'm a big Neil Stephenson fan, and I'm really excited about that. Father Robert, do you still listen to audiobooks?
All the time. Okay, I have to ask you this, Leo. Do you re-listen to audiobooks?
Sometimes, like I said, I like Dune. I re-listened to.
I've got 3
amazing
authors.
Okay.
I always listen to.
Dennis
really?
E.
Taylor.
Yes.
Andy Weir.
Bobaverse.
And Daniel Suarez.
Project Hail Mary is incredible. Highly recommend that. And of course, Daniel's a friend of all 3 of them. Well, I don't know Dennis E. Taylor yet. I hope to make a friend of him, but both Andy Weir and Daniel Suarez have been on the show. And Ray Porter reads Project Hail Mary in that same kind of great style. Wonderful, wonderful. Or you can get it in Spanish, and then Raul Lorenz will read it for you. So either way, Proyecto Hail Mary. All right, here it comes, the round Pixel Watch. Now, Lisa, tell me, Google filing a trademark application for the words Pixel Watch, does that confirm this watch, or is it? I mean, maybe they don't want anybody else to call it a Pixel Watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, it doesn't confirm anything yet. They could just be doing it because they don't want anyone else using that branding, although I don't think anyone would, because it would probably make things really confusing. But I don't think it confirms anything, but we've been hearing so many reports that Google, for years, not even just recently, but for years, we've been hearing that Google has been working on its own smartwatch. And by we, I'm talking about the collective news cycle and the rumors and reports that have been floating around for years, not anything that I'm specifically aware of or anything like that. But we have been hearing more reports recently, and one of which, I think one of the most detailed ones came from Insider. I believe it might have been December. I'd have to double check. But that report had a lot of details, actually written by one of my former colleagues, since I used to work there. Hugh Langley, my former colleague at Insider, wrote this great report about how Google was working on a Pixel Watch, and it'll probably have, I think that report mentioned things like the design possibly being round, which wouldn't be very surprising because I think all Android Wear watches are round. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure they all have that round design. Yeah. I haven't seen a square one, but again, I could be misremembering.
Fossil might make one, but I think they're round. Yeah.
But yeah, and that report mentioned a bunch of things that we would expect, like health tracking features and things like that. But I wouldn't be. There's also a bunch of things that you can kind of assume would be on a Google smartwatch. If Google did make a smartwatch, like integration with Fitbit seems pretty logical, the latest version of Wear OS. But I think to me, what would stand out the most is, Google has done a really great thing with its Pixel phones in that it kind of has a lot of software features that make it stand out. And, that's a hard thing to do in, a space like the smartphone market that's already pretty crowded and pretty dominated by Apple and Samsung. But I really like the way Google thinks about, taking care of some of those inconveniences that we experience on our phones sometimes, like, having the Google Assistant screen calls for you and things like that, or estimating wait times, how long you'll be on hold, things like that. So I'm personally hoping that we see some version of that in a Google smartwatch. I don't know what it would be, but like really thinking about how to improve the way we use these devices. And I think that's one thing that we've seen from Google that is pretty unique. So I hope that carries over to the Pixel Watch, if it is in fact real, of course.
One of the things you told me in your article, and I have forgotten this, Google's never made a watch.
Yeah. They don't have their own consumer watch yet. And that's the thing. It's kind of similar to what the smartphone market was like for Google before it came out with its Pixel phones. I mean, it had its Nexus phones for a while, but those weren't really as popular. But Google was still so influential, obviously, because it's the operator of Android. So it has this really huge, presence in the mobile space. But it's also a competitor. It's weird in that it has to partner with the companies that it competes with. And that would be the case for smartwatches too. And I think that would be a challenge for Google, if it does release a Pixel Watch, it will have to, obviously promote that while also working with Samsung, which would then be one of its competitors, and then also differentiate its own watch from Fitbit's watches. So it would, there's a lot going on there. So it could cause some confusion.
It kind of makes sense because Google bought Fitbit that they, they still release Fitbits, but they're not under the Google brand, that they might want to brand a Pixel Watch. Do you think that this is the Pixel Watch, the one that was left behind in a restaurant?
I actually haven't seen that. I don't know.
It looks like the renders.
It does look like the renders, but who knows if that's even legitimate? Who knows how old it is, or if that was even meant to be something that would even be a final version of it? There's a lot of questions. We won't really know until Google comes out and says it.
Yeah. Whoever left it in the restaurant apparently took the band with them.
Yeah.
Maybe there isn't a band.
Maybe it's a pocket watch.
It's a pocket watch.
Yeah. I would get that.
That would be pretty cool.
I would buy a Google Pocket Watch.
Put a chain on that thing and have a monocle at the end. I'm in.
A Google Glass monocle.
Leo, here's the thing, though. Google's Pixel strategy, from the phone to the Pixel Book, has always been to inspire their partners to make something better. That's what they've been doing.
The first one was the Moto
products.
360, right? And that was a great watch. It was round. I really liked it. Yeah.
Actually, you had it. You bought it.
Yes.
And then you gave it away. And I got it. I wore it for 6 months.
Is that
until
where that
I realized
went?
It wasn't really waterproof.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's kind of a bummer.
No, I really liked it. The problem is if you're an Apple user, you're going to end up using an Apple Watch.
Correct.
And if you're an Android user, you're probably a Samsung user. So you're going to use a Samsung watch.
Well, I think that's the thing here, too, is that there is, the Android space is more fragmented. There is no, just like you kind of mentioned right now, there is no just one answer to the Apple Watch on the Android side of things. There's choice, right? There's Samsung, there's Fitbit, which works across both, there's Fossil. So I think Google has an opportunity, like, we were just talking about to say, hey, this is the ideal Android smartwatch experience. You know, just like the Pixel has kind of become a blueprint for what Android smartphones could be, a Pixel watch might do that for Android smartwatches. So I'm very interested to see what Google does with this, especially since it's pretty late to the game at this point compared to the rest of the industry.
Lisa, a question to you, which is, with the other Pixel products, Google has always tried to fill in something that they feel is missing. Like the products don't get right. So with the phones, it was, look, you need to have better screens and faster processors. With the Chromebooks, it was, you need a premium Chromebook. No more of this $50 to $200 stuff. And they proved that that could work. So what does Google think is missing in the Android watch arena? What are the features that it wants to include and inspire the other manufacturers to put in?
Yeah, I think that's what we're hoping to see. I mean, it's hard. I can't answer that question for Google, but what I'm hoping to see is, I guess, I think a lot of it's going to come down to the software, honestly. But again, that's a tricky question because how much of it is going to be specific to the Pixel Watch, if there is a Pixel Watch, and how much of that is just going to be part of whatever the next version of Wear OS is that, you know, would come to Samsung smartwatches and Fossil smartwatches and presumably, you know, other companies that partner with Google. So I think that's going to continue to be the challenge is, again, like having Google say like, hey, this is what we feel like needs to be done better. And we're doing that on our product versus how much does it, you know, also share with the rest of the industry. So I'm curious to see how they strike that balance.
It's a tough job because Apple is so dominant. And then if they're not, like I said, Samsung is. What could you do that Apple and Samsung don't do? Well, good battery life might be something that would
absolutely
help. More than 1 day battery life.
But Fitbit already does that really well too, at least compared to Apple and Samsung. So I hope that Google, you know, gets some inspiration from Fitbit, which they now own. But yeah, I mean, battery life is definitely a big part of that for sure.
There's so much parity. I have both the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 and an Apple Watch Series 6, and there's so much parity between them for activity, heart rate, sleep monitoring. I mean, it's hard to imagine what you're missing, except the things that Apple has historically not been able to do. No one's been able to do things like blood sugar monitoring and blood pressure, both of which are very hard to do. Some watches claim blood pressure. I think a lot of it's going to come down to how they decide to show that information. And I mean, Google, you know, you were asking what can they possibly do differently? What can they bring to this that Apple and Samsung haven't already done yet? You know, one thing that I would personally like to see is, you know, we have so many health metrics now that can be measured on our wrist. And you just mentioned some of the ones that we can't measure yet, which is probably a good thing because, you know, I think I have a lot of opinions on having access to that kind of data from home. And on one side, it's great that you can learn more about your health. On the other side, without the context of a doctor, I kind of worry about having all that information at our fingertips. Right. But I honestly think that companies can be doing a lot more to make this data useful to us. Samsung promised the Google Assistant on their watch. They still haven't done it. Maybe that's something. I mean, I guess.
I hope so. I mean, I think there's a big opportunity for, you know, Google to really prove how useful the assistant can be on smartwatches because theoretically, you know, it's, you know, that is the, you know, the Google Assistant is in so many different products. I don't find myself using it that often on phones, but I use Siri on my Apple Watch all the time because it's such a small screen. I don't really want to type on it. I don't want to really navigate the watch that much using swipes, like for short things and short interactions. Absolutely. But if I want to quickly set a timer or check the weather or something like that, I use Siri all the time for things like that. So I think Google has a big opportunity to really show what the assistant can do on a Pixel Watch.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. We don't have the assistant on any of these watches yet, do we? Does Moto do it? Does Fossil do it?
It is on some smartwatches, I believe, but I do think that it was promised to come to the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4, and I don't think it's come out yet. I'd have to double check, but I don't think it has.
In fact, I think Samsung's, if they're not putting it off forever, they're delaying it significantly. Yeah, all right. I mean, it shows you that Google still has some mind share that people are even talking about this. Somebody in the chat room says, any Google Watch should have the feature that, Google releases it, then kills it a month later. They'd be competing with the Kin and Quibi and CNN Plus for the quickest death.
Quibi, that's what I was trying to think of earlier.
Yes,
good old
yeah.
Quibi.
More recent comparison I could have pulled out than the Kin.
No, I liked the Kin.
No.
I liked it.
I loved that
Palm
Lisa's got
Zion.
one.
The Palm Zion. I don't even know that one.
It was the product that was manufactured, marketed, and then destroyed before it was ever released.
Oh.
That is definitely the shortest product ever. Millions.
No,
of
wait a
units
minute.
were destroyed.
Microsoft says, hold my beer. Didn't they do a Surface tablet, lightweight Surface tablet?
Oh, the two screen.
Yeah, no, the
Duo.
Courier they never did, but they also did or the Duo. Yeah, there's a lot of bad products out there, come to think of it. But remember, it was the first thing Satya Nadella did when he took over as CEO. He said, we're not releasing that. And there was a warehouse full of them.
There was
a Surface, not the Mini. I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of...
Oh, what about the 3Com Audrey?
Oh, the Audrey, which is the kitchen computer.
That's right.
For all you gals who like to work in the kitchen, you'll love the Audrey kitchen computer. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was ancient history.
Yeah, we're digging back now.
Would they announce it? So Google I/O is coming up. It's a weird it's not exactly hybrid, slightly hybrid event, mostly online, but there'll be a few people at the event, mostly developers and Google employees. Would that be where they would announce it? Prosser, who said they would announce it in May, is now backtracking and saying he's one of the big Google Pixel rumor guys. He actually does Apple rumors too. He's now saying they'll show it or talk about it at Google I/O, but won't release it till October. That seems like a stupid plan.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that Google is just going to release another messaging app.
Yeah. That's the killer. There it is, the killer app for the Pixel Watch. Messaging. Brilliant. Because you've always trusted Google with your messages. All right, maybe not. Let's see. Speaking of Google, Vice had a great article on Google's AI-powered inclusive warnings feature. This is part of kind of a grammar checker that's rolling out this month for Google Docs. And, of course, Vice having some fun with it. For instance, one of their Motherboard senior staff writers typed annoyed. Google suggested angry or upset, which is not a good replacement for annoyed. Then social editor Emily Lipstein typed in motherboard, as in the name of this website, into a document. Google said, you're being insensitive. Using the word motherboard. Some of these words may not be inclusive to all readers. Consider using different words. Then another person, a journalist, Rebecca Baird-Remba, tweeted that she got the warning on the word landlord, which Google said you should say property owner or proprietor. Maybe this isn't going to be, well, they're working on it. Let's say they're working on it.
I am not so much interested in the whole inclusive language grammar check as I am in the technology that they're using to do this. My understanding is this isn't just a find and trigger.
Is it GPT?
This is actual context analysis. And if it is that would be a great hook, because right now I'm paying Amazon for context analysis, and that's expensive. If Google could give me a product, I would definitely try it.
That is interesting. I've used that on not this, and not for quite some time now, but a script that picked out language in job specs and in adverts for jobs to try and make sure that you weren't using language and keywords and phrasing that could put off a more diverse pool of candidates for a position. And there was a really interesting study done, which I don't have to hand because it's only just come back to my mind, but I'm sure it can be Googled, a study done about inclusive language within the world of job applications. And actually, you get a much richer workforce by tuning the language used in your job specs, and I've used that before. How effective that is long term is hard to measure, at least from my perspective. But I do think that there's a kernel of validity in some of these things that can be helpful. Perhaps not quite to this level, but sometimes. Yeah.
Well, we have a sponsor, Grammarly, and I use Grammarly. My wife needs Grammarly because she can sometimes, she's the boss. She runs the place, and she's got a lot of stuff to do. Sometimes her emails will seem curt because she's just giving you the information, and Grammarly will say, maybe just, please and thank you, and I think that's appropriate, and she appreciates it when they reminds her, you got to be nice. Sometimes you got to be nice. Craziness going on in the world of travel after a judge in Florida lifted the CDC's requirement for masks on airplanes and on buses and on trains. Uber went along and lifted the mask mandate for drivers and riders. I'm curious, since we've got people all over the world here, here in California, I just went yesterday, we had our big, for the first time since the pandemic, our big parade and celebration. It's called Butter and Eggs Day, and it's a heart attack in the making. But it's a lot of fun, and I went downtown and we watched the parade and the cutest little chicken town contest. No masks, no social distancing. People were so happy to get outside and party and have fun, and it was as if it was like 2 years ago. And I'm just curious, Nate, what's it like in the UK right now? Here in the United States, there seems to be a growing, regardless of what's happening with COVID, a growing desire to just say, chuck it all and go back to the way it used to be.
We haven't had masks enforced for quite some time now. So Uber dropped it when the law said it was no longer mandated. I can't remember exactly when that was, but it was a little while ago, and the numbers had been very, very high, but the number of hospitalizations were relatively low, so they just stuck to it, and now infection rates are falling again. But it's been a long time since I've felt pressure to wear a mask. I've done it out of courtesy on occasion, but it's very much not expected here right now.
Apple has ended the mask mandate in retail stores in the U.S. Amazon made masks optional last month for warehouse workers. Big tech companies are starting to bring their workers back, by the way, kicking and screaming because the workers don't want to come back. What's it like in Italy right now?
Everyone's wearing masks.
Really?
Well, not everyone. I mean, outside, it's still pretty much everyone takes it down or puts it over their nose. But in the Vatican, you're still required to wear a mask. And in the main areas of Rome, people understand what happens if the rates start going back up.
Right. And
so out of courtesy
Italy got
to
hit
everyone,
so hard
wear a mask
early on.
Right. We were the first in the Western world to get hit, and we got hit so hard, and people learned from that.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, everyone in my house, we wear masks. None of us had a flu or a cold for 2 years.
Well, that's the other reason to keep it on. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get a cold. That's a good reason. I didn't ask you, Lisa, are you on the East Coast or the West Coast?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast in New York.
Where there have been spiking happening.
Yeah. And you see, for the most part, I feel like it's kind of mixed. I do see people with masks, but especially outside, I also see people not wearing them. The one place you definitely continue to see them a lot is the subway, of course.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone on the subway is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
There'll be a couple of people that might not have one, but I feel like that's usually the exception for the most part.
Good.
But I mean, indoors, restaurants, things like that, people used to at least kind of walk in with their mask on and then take it down. But now I think people are, for the most part, just, not really wearing them as much indoors in restaurants, at least from what I've observed.
I think I wanted there to be like a day where everybody said, it's over. And it's not going to be that way. In fact, there are places I will continue to wear a mask. I've got a pretty good supply of them now. And it should be okay. It should be okay to do either, I think. Yeah.
One of the things that's happened over the last couple of days that's got a lot of people very annoyed here is the emphasis on a certain lawmaker in our conservative government here who so badly wants every civil servant to be back in the office that he printed out a very, very passive-aggressive letter and left it on their desk saying, "Sorry, I missed you. I hope to see you back at your desk soon."
Oh,
jeez. The gentleman who does this, his name is Jacob Rees-Mogg. I will bite my tongue in the interest of not, making a fool out of myself. But just Google it, have a look at it. He is the sort of person you would expect to do something like this. The fact that he's done something like this has made a lot of people just facepalm so hard. But it goes back, and the tech angle here is about working from home and about how effective can people be when your office job is a desk job. How effective can you still be having 2 years of experience doing those jobs remotely? And the answer is, for I think many people, very effective. So these kind of passive-aggressive ways of trying to get people back into the office when they're very happy and very potentially efficient doing their jobs from home 1 or 2 days a week, it's very offensive. And a lot of people in the public over the weekend have been really quite angry about this.
Here's the note featuring the Great Seal at the top. "Sorry you were out when I visited. I looked forward to seeing you in the office very soon. With every good wish, the Right Honourable Jacob Rees-Mogg, MP, Minister for Brexit Opportunities." There's a title.
Yeah.
And I think it's very nice that it's pinned to green baize, which is nice. It's very British, very English.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And it
looks like he had these printed up.
Yeah.
By the thousands.
Yeah. Please think before printing this passive-aggressive email. That's what they should be adding into Google Docs.
Yes. Do you really?
You realize you sound like a...
You sound like a twit.
Yeah, a twit, yes.
Look, there's a balance that we have to strike. There are definitely some workspaces that need at least a minimum of interaction between people. It does help in the creative process. It helps in sorting things out quickly. However, office managers have to come to grips with the fact that we've proven that they're useless in many situations.
Yep.
That employees work much better when they don't have an office manager hovering over their shoulder, that they'll get as much or more done on their own. So now the question becomes, all right, what are we paying people for? Are we paying them to fill a space at a desk? Are we paying them for productivity? Are we paying them to be part of a team in which they collaborate and cooperate with their fellow workers?
I think this is going to shake out well. I think there are some managers who don't get it, but I think the vast majority of managers will, if they're not by themselves or forced by their employees, one or the other. And it's going to, in the long run, have a beneficial effect that this industrial era mentality of sitting at a desk 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I think that's almost over. California is actually considering a 4-day work week, a 36-hour work week. I think that would be
in
great.
France, they've passed laws to ban you from being forced to check emails after hours. Like you can go pretty heavy-handed.
I love that. You know why you have to do that?
You get fined, right?
Yeah, because their bosses will say, "I sent you an email at 2 a.m. Why did you not respond?"
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the other thing I was. Oh.
Go ahead.
No, go on,
Lisa.
Yeah, I was going to mention, aside from more flexibility in terms of where you're working, I do feel like the pandemic has raised awareness about burnout and, the culture around burnout. Because I think, at first when we all started working from home, the opposite was happening, right? Like you're home, there's not much else to do because you can't really go anywhere. And I think a lot of people probably ended up working more in the early days of the pandemic, especially us in the news industry for sure, because there was so much going on that we needed to be covering. But, I do think that it has brought up a good conversation around burnout and being aware, having managers be aware of burnout and drawing that line between your personal and your work life when it all starts to kind of blend together as it has over the past couple of years.
I love it. I think, I follow the anti-work subreddit, which has really actually helped open my eyes to how awful some workplaces are. And I'm glad workers are standing up and saying, yeah, that's not okay. We're not going to stand for this. And I feel bad for the younger generation now, faced with jobs that are so pitifully paid and work so many hours that all they can basically do is work, eat, sleep. They'll never own a home. They'll never be able to put any money aside. That's not right. That's not how this is supposed to be. And I, for one, would like to blame the oligarchs because they're doing just fine.
Better than fine.
better.
These last 2 years have been fantastic for the wealthy.
Yeah.
Remember, the first time in the history of our country, the top 1% of wealth is concentrated into people who own more than the next 60%.
Yeah. Income inequality is going to be a
US.
massive problem in the U.S. Yeah. COVID lockdowns in Shanghai, however, proceed apace. They are now starting to fence in people. 39 fatalities yesterday, bringing the total number of virus-related deaths to 87 since late February. That doesn't sound like a lot, but the Chinese Communist Party's policy is zero COVID, and they are anxious to have no COVID. And so they are sealing up buildings, locking people in. There's been food insecurity due to that. And from our point of view, one of the concerns is many of the factories in Shanghai are shut down. Some are saying the supply chain shortages we're currently experiencing will get nothing but worse due to this shutdown. So I don't know whether it's merited. You know, the Chinese government had up to now done a very good job fighting COVID. But it is a real problem right now for workers.
We have had guests from China, from Hong Kong, from Shanghai, from Shenzhen come into Rome. And the actual numbers are way, way higher.
They're not reporting all the deaths. Yeah.
They're not reporting.
Yeah, of course not. And now they're fencing people in, these green fences. This is from the BBC, of course, green fences being installed outside of buildings to keep people inside. Wow, 25 million people in Shanghai, all shut inside in their homes to prevent the spread of COVID. Let's take a little break. I hope you and your loved ones are well and surviving. Our show today brought to you by Noom. If you would like to start a healthier lifestyle, I know for me and Lisa, it's been a boon. We love Noom. Of course, one of the things, I consider myself a diet expert. I knew them all, done them all. But what I hadn't really considered is the psychology of eating. And that's what Noom was so great for. It's really not a diet. Noom will head you on a path toward better health with a psychology-based approach. Changes the way you think about food, improves your understanding of why you eat, when you eat. I, for example, and everybody's different, but I am a fog eater. I will eat unconsciously. And Noom helped me become more conscious about my eating, chewing, putting down my fork, turning off the TV, turning off the phone while I eat to really enjoy my food. And you know what? I enjoy it more and I eat less. Noom's psychological approach is based on scientific principles like cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT really works. It helps you understand your relationship with food and then build sustainable habits that last a lifetime. One of the things that surprised me about Noom when I first started, and I've been doing it for about a year, is they said there's no bad foods. We don't demonize food. It's not about there's bad foods and good foods. That's not what this is all about. Noom doesn't believe in restricting what you can or cannot eat. It just helps you know better what you're doing, so you're doing it consciously, and kind of almost magically, you lose weight, you get healthier, you get more fit. Noom understands that building these long-term positive habits is hard. It can be filled with ups and downs. They say it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Everybody's journey looks different. With Noom, you get an app. You can track everything you're eating and drinking and all the exercise you're doing. You get coaching from Noom, just a few minutes every day to learn these good habits. You also get a personal coach, and you get a group that you're in it together. And all of that really helps. Noom is grounded in science. It's the heart of everything they do. In fact, they take this so seriously, they've published more than 30 peer-reviewed scientific articles that inform users, but also practitioners and scientists and the public about how the methods work and how well they work. And I can tell you, Lisa and I both love Noom. It's really changed our lifestyle. You know, I started doing it, and she said, I'm going to do it to support you, which was really nice. We've been eating that way and eating really right for a year now, and it's been so great. Our son has lost weight too, joining us on this Noom journey. It's incredible. And you don't have to worry about, things like, I always hated diets because one bad day, one day off, and it's all over, and you throw it in. Not with Noom. They help you get back on track. There are no bad days. You decide how Noom weight fits into your life, not the other way around. You can spend 5, 10, 15 minutes a day reading. That's up to you. There's always extra if you want. It changes how I shop. It changes how I look at food, how I think about it. And the best thing for me is, and this is personal, this is about me, but if I saw food, I would eat it. If there's food on the counter, if there's food in our kitchen here at work, I will eat it. There's been treats sitting on that counter at work. There's always treats. There's candy, there's cakes. And I feel really good. I don't have to force myself. I just have the knowledge. I go, oh yeah, you're going to fog eat. Go ahead, put that in your mouth. Go ahead. So when I do eat it, it's conscious and it's a decision. It's incredible. Start building better habits today. We are huge fans of Noom. It's been really good for us. Many of the people we know have started doing it as a result. Sign up for your trial. Noom, Noom.com/twit. When you first sign up, there's a questionnaire that is the beginning of the process. You're going to really learn about what your relationship is to food. Just even that by itself is great. Noom.com/twit to sign up for your trial. Noom.com/twit. Feel better, have more energy, look better, be more confident. And for me, the most important part was this struggle that I have always had with eating and dieting and weight just has disappeared. No more struggle. I love that. If it were just that enough would be alone. That alone would be enough. Noom.com/twit. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Noom. And Lisa thanks you too. Okay, let's get back to these stories.
During that ad, I signed up for Noom.
Did you really?
All my information, and it said I could hit my target weight by March 14th of next year.
Wouldn't that feel good?
That would be incredible, actually.
Wouldn't that feel good? Yeah.
I think I have to cut off a leg, but
no. The number one thing is your logging, and I think by itself, logging, writing down everything you eat, just completely changes it. Because you just don't unconsciously put something in your mouth. You have to write it down. I'm mixed feelings about this. I'm great friends with Kevin Rose. I love Kevin Rose. He has gotten together with Beeple, the digital artist, Gary Vaynerchuk. They created a company called the Proof Collective, and they designed 10,000 cartoon owls, 1,000 NFT collectors, some of the biggest names in NFTs. They initially, and maybe I'm just mad at Kevin because he didn't tell me when they launched. I could have bought in at $7,900. The minimum price now for one of these owls, remember they if you got in at the bottom, $7,900, $285,000 of the 10,000 Moonbirds. 7,000 were given away for a raffle, 2,000 for members, and 125 for distribution by the Moonbird team. They have sold hundreds of millions of dollars, $281 million in sales volume. And Kevin and company, the founders of Proof Collective, have taken home $50 million. And all they had to do was create some cartoon owls. So I'm just curious. Kevin made a video explaining, no, we're going to do something good with the money, really. I'm just curious, and I bring this up a lot. No one has yet to convince me that this is anything but a speculative bubble.
Mm-hmm. I like that the screenshot that you showed was dated April 1st.
Yeah, it almost feels like it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could get an owl with devil's horns or an angel's halo. You can get an owl in a space helmet. You can get a robot owl, an owl with a duck on its head.
There are some very needy owls in the world that could use your money in the form of a donation so they don't die than this. And I don't mean to bring the tone down, but give some of that money to do some good.
Yeah.
If they're going to do that, great. I hope they do. Otherwise,
Kevin, I love Kevin.
Money.
I trust him. His podcast on DeFi and crypto is great, and I've learned a lot, including how NFTs work. I've yet to see anything that makes this anything other than a pyramid scheme. To be
It's
blunt.
a tulip.
It's worse than a
It is
tulip.
absolutely a tulip.
It's worse than a tulip because people are buying these not because they love these owls. Maybe some people do, but mostly because they think somebody's going to come along and pay more than they did. Right?
look what happened with Jack Dorsey's first tweet. It can't sell.
No.
Nah.
And it makes me happy because the guy who bought it is now out $2 million.
Yeah.
He spent, what, $2.9 million for, again, it's an NFT, so you don't, I mean, the tweet doesn't, like, go in your pocket. It doesn't become part of your physical possessions. You just have kind of some tenuous link to it. The guy who bought it, $2.9 million, hasn't been able to find a buyer for more than a few thousand. So he's out almost $3 million. Of course, the guy who
Anyone
bought
else
it.
can make a copy of it. Anyone else can have it.
Yeah, I
Anyone
can
else
tell you what it
store
is. Yeah.
You have a link. You have a tenuous grasp on the ownership of said thing, but no way to really enforce your ownership of said thing. I mean, okay, I get it. It is a speculative instrument, just like most everything in the financial world. And if you can make money on it because someone else is willing to pay you for it, great, awesome. But I'm like you, Leo. This is one of these things where everyone is just waiting for the music to stop, and they want to be not there when it stops.
It's a little telling. The guy who bought Jack Dorsey's tweet, when he bought it, said, "This is not just a tweet. I think years later, people will realize the true value of this tweet, like the Mona Lisa painting." Crossing
Says
his
the guy
fingers.
who wants to sell it.
Yeah, and then a year later, he puts it up for auction. Not a lot. Not a lot. The highest bid, I don't know. I think $13,000, but I think it's even less. And when you take out the gas fees, that's the other problem. The people who are really making money on this are the people who are generating the NFT. All right. I don't want to pile on or anything. I love Kevin Rose, but I am skeptical of all this, and I will not be buying any bored owls or bored apes or zombies. Do you have any NFTs, Lisa? Did you buy in at the bottom?
I don't. I am right there with you. I'm still kind of skeptical and personally trying to figure out what's going on with NFTs. It's not an area that I am very well versed in. Maybe I need to listen to Kevin's podcast and learn a bit more about it.
You should. It's the first episode of It's called the Modern Finance Podcast. He has an NFT guy on, and I think it's probably why Kevin ended up doing the Proof Collective. At least with tulips, you got a bulb, right? You don't. This out of sync in the chat room saying, no, crypto is tulip bulbs. NFTs are pictures of tulip bulbs.
No. I wouldn't even say NFTs are pictures of tulip bulbs. I think NFTs are the description of a picture of a tulip bulb.
Of a tulip bulb.
I think that's getting closer.
Yeah, and by the way, I should say, Kevin bought advertising on TWiT for Modern Finance, which, by the way, I still agree with. It's a great podcast. So I think my problem is not if people who are in the crypto arena are buying this stuff, fine. You know what you're doing. You're probably spending your Dogecoin that you only bought for pennies for it anyway, right? It's not like you're spending real money. But where I draw the lines, we start to promote this to people who are not in the crypto sphere. And they have to, because it's only worth something if they can get somebody to pay more for it. So all of this enthusiasm, all of this excitement, all these people saying it's the next big thing, what they're really saying is, please buy this thing I bought that isn't worth anything unless you buy it for more than I paid for it. And that's what bothers me. So I kind of want to keep hitting this because I want people who are on the fence or saying, oh, that's interesting, or maybe there's something there, or being persuaded by all the crypto bros who say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread's going to change the world, to think twice a little bit, because there's no inherent value
There's a difference between telling someone that they're gambling, which is what a financial advisor will do. Say, this is a speculative instrument.
Right.
You may make money, you may lose money, and telling people it is an investment. Those people who are telling others that NFTs are investments that will only go up in value, that's wrong. Morally, ethically repugnant.
Well, now we know.
Because we know that's not true.
Yeah, it's not.
There was
go ahead.
There was some ads that ran on the London Underground a little while ago about investing in Bitcoin, and I think the wording was something like, "If you're seeing ads for Bitcoin on the tube, it's time to buy." And they got in trouble for it and had to pull the ads. And it was really interesting because actually, if you're seeing ads for Bitcoin on the tube, chances are it's probably a good time to sell. And I don't think the irony of that was lost on the regulators who said you can't put this ad on for that exact reason, because it's disingenuous at best, and it is, repugnant at worst, getting people to think that it's an investment when it's speculation and it's gambling.
Yeah. Oh, well.
It's sort of like when your parents are on Facebook, it's time to get off of Facebook.
Yeah. Are my mom and dad on Facebook? I'm not on Facebook. HBO creating a Minecraft movie. Jason, with Aquaman, which is very confusing. Jason Momoa, Aquaman, will star. I put star in quotes. No one knows. Is he going to play Steve? Who is he? Who is he going to play? Is it? I think it's a live action. They say live action Minecraft movie.
Is it a blockbuster?
Hey. I'll give you 8 bits for a ticket. Yeah, I mean, Minecraft is huge. In December, Minecraft videos surpassed 1 trillion views on YouTube. In 2021, last year, there were over 140 million monthly active users playing Minecraft. So, it makes sense to make a movie. The director, Jared Hess, did Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre, so it's going to be good. That's quality.
The only way I see this working is if it's a movie about like the Minecraft community, not actually a movie about what's happening in Minecraft.
Yeah.
That would actually be interesting. I would like that. I would enjoy that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fascinating. Yeah. But I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I mean,
Minecraft
is huge, so it'll probably make a lot of money, but
Sure.
I'm skeptical because I feel like there aren't many video game-based movies that are actually good. I mean, there's been a lot of...
There was Sonic.
I don't know.
There was,
Yeah, I'd say maybe Sonic.
Super Mario
but I don't
Brothers
know.
was incredible. Okay.
No, it wasn't. You lie. You liar. You're
Standard.
a liar. You're just lying now. How do you like your Oreos? Do you eat them all at once, Lisa, or do you open them up and eat the cream first, or you dunk them in milk? What's your Oreo strategy?
I usually open them up. I flop back and forth, though. Sometimes I just eat it like a regular cookie.
Well, then
but
you'll be
like I
interested
open
in
them up.
this. The study of why Oreo cream filling usually sticks to one side. They're calling it Oreology. And MIT has actually published a paper in the journal Physics of Fluid. The co-author, a graduate student at MIT, Crystal Owens, her primarily studies 3D printing with complex. You got some Oreos there. Go ahead, twist it. One side. Oh, wow. You should mail that to her right now because that completely contradicts the conclusions. Did you warm that Oreo up? Had you pre-split it?
I literally just took it out of the package right now. I did my own research.
You are not on Noom. You have a package of Oreos right there. Oh boy. That is actually, this could be a good test. Are you going to eat it or put it back in the box?
It goes in the garbage.
I know you're into 3D printing. I don't know what 3D printing with complex fluid inks is. But complex fluids are all around us, she says. many foods, sauces, condiments, yogurt, ice cream, and other products are complex fluids, like neither solid nor liquid, I guess. I don't know.
I think that's like some sort of fluid in suspension, basically, is a complex fluid.
Yeah. So she designed a tool to twist the Oreo. It's an Oreo stress rheometer, RHEOMETER. It twists the fluid between parallel discs in order to measure its viscosity. She had an epiphany staring at her rheometer, said, oh, wait a minute. I could use that to study Oreo breakage. So
as you do.
So as one does. So I proposed my idea to my research advisor, and the project was born. Turns out Oreos are a canonical example of parallel plate rheometry. The cookies are an everyday tri-layer laminate composite. The cream is the fluid sample, and the two wafers are the parallel plates. Counter-rotating the wafers, that's what you just did, Robert, causes the cream to shear and flow before fracturing as the two wafers come apart. But your results are completely contrary to the results of the study because...
Shall we try again?
Yeah, do another one.
Okay, so counterclockwise, right?
Well, any way you want.
No,
you're allowed.
Counterclockwise.
I feel like I should be doing a drum roll.
No. That one. No. You have special Vatican Oreos. That's
Must be.
There's something. She said, I had in my mind, if you twist the Oreos perfectly, as Robert just did, you should split the cream perfectly in the middle. But what actually happens, contrary to our own research, I might point out, is the cream almost always comes off on one side. The cream distribution is not affected by rotation rate, the amount of cream filling, or the flavor. They got double stuff. They got all kinds of flavors. They tried it all different ways with the rheometer. She does say the rotation rate does play an important role in whether or not the cookies break apart cleanly. If you try to twist the Oreos faster, you can do another one, Robert. Try it fast.
Okay.
It actually takes more. It's harder the faster you twist. So if you're stressed and desperate to open your cookie, do it a little slower.
But no.
Jeez Louise.
These are defective Oreos.
These are defective.
Actually, these might be counterfeit Oreos.
Oh, that's what it is. You're not. Oh, they're Hydrox. I can tell. Those are Hydrox. Those ain't Oreos. Anyway, so you're just with your own empirical results. Just as the Vatican and the Jesuits have always been known to do, you have completely destroyed.
It's what we do.
That's what you do, the scientific paper, with your own investigation. But by the way, if you want to do the studies at home, they have open sourced their 3D printed Oreo meter. So you could use it at home or in the classroom.
Oh, I am so printing that thing up.
You should. Cookies can be mounted onto two clamps powered by rubber bands. Powered may not be quite the right word there. The next step is to load pennies one by one into either of two symmetric penny castles, thereby applying torque in precise increments. Use new pennies for the best results. When they tested their Oreometer in the lab, they achieved similar results.
Leo, I'm going to make you one of these, except I'm going to power it with a stepper motor and an Arduino.
All right, baby.
Let's make this. Let's make this real.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had an Oreo.
What?
What?
That is an anomaly. That's wow.
You eat some sort of weird British biscuit that tastes like malted barley.
We have something called a custard cream.
Custard cream.
And a bourbon biscuit.
Wait a minute. They don't have Oreos in England?
We probably do. I've just never had one.
They've got Oreos everywhere.
I'm sure we do.
Oreos are everywhere. You get Oreos in every country of the world.
I'm sure we do. I've just never had one. But now I'm thinking, could you apply this to the custard cream or the bourbon biscuit?
The chat room, I hate to tell you this, Nate, says that your drum skins look like opened Oreos behind you. So you may have had Oreos and just never knew it, okay?
Yeah.
You just never Knew it. All right, one more break. Then we have more silly stories to wrap this up. Fabulous panel. Great to have all three of you. I would like to talk instead about our sponsor for this segment, Wealthfront. If you want to buy some silly owls, fine. Go right ahead. Stock trading can be fun. It's like, as you said, it's like gambling. But the thrill of risking it all is best enjoyed in moderation, like casino gambling and eating street food. If you're playing the market, I hope for your sake you're stashing some safer money in a place like Wealthfront. Wealthfront is not day trading. Wealthfront is a way to invest using well-researched, proven methodologies to build your wealth. Wealthfront has a ton of data to show that time in the market almost always beats timing the market. So they offer globally diversified portfolios, automatically optimized to hit the goals you set and the risk level you choose. In fact, if you don't even want to answer those questions, you can do it completely automatically. Or maybe you'd like to personalize your portfolio. You can see I'm doing this right now on the website with a selection of funds handpicked by Wealthfront's financial experts in social responsibility. Yeah, you can get into crypto this way, but this is a little bit better way to get into crypto or clean energy or cannabis even, emerging markets. You get to choose. But the point of it is that you're going to have, a globally diversified portfolio optimized to hit the goals you set. You get automatic tax breaks to boost your returns. In fact, they call it tax loss harvesting, and Wealthfront actually invented the software to do this. The best robo-advisor for 2022, according to Investopedia. And I'm going to make it even more tasty. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, wealthfront.com/twit, wealthfront.com/twit to start building your wealth. Go to wealthfront.com/twit and get started today. We thank Wealthfront so much for supporting This Week in Tech. You support us too when you use the URLs our advertisers give you, like this one, wealthfront.com/twit. We had a fun week this week on TWiT. We even made a little video for you to watch. Enjoy.
Mr. Jarvis, Mr. Burt says that I was supposed to ask you about your appearance on Moonlighting.
Oh, yeah. Very famous. Yeah, everybody knows about that.
I don't.
I have right here a tape of last week's episode, and I'll show you all the good parts. Won't take long.
Previously on TWiT. Mac Break Weekly.
Apple is readying several new Macs with next generation M2 chips, as many as 9 Macs, according to developer logs.
That's something Apple tries to avoid, because a lot of times people who are testing these devices, they put apps on them, and then the developer gets logs back, and sometimes there's unique characteristics about future devices.
Tech News Weekly.
I was talking last week about CNN Plus and how folks were a little bit concerned that CNN Plus was not doing so well, that the subscribers were not doing well, etc. It looks like things are a little bit more interesting than we thought. It appears that CNN Plus is going to be shut down.
This Week in Google.
No good, terrible day for Netflix yesterday. They had to announce for the first time ever a loss of subscribers. Netflix is saying we're going to start looking at ad-supported. I don't want ads in my Netflix. I think that could go the other way for them, right? I always enjoy watching one-time innovators, now huge and successful, pivot to turf protection. It always involves using all kinds of distorted logic to justify making their product worse to please investors.
TWiT. It keeps going and going and going.
And the great Jim Cutler, thank you, Jim, does all our voice announcing. He's been doing it since Tech TV days. We love you, Jim. Jim and Don are the best. Thank you. Thank you for that. It is now legal to watch TV behind the wheel of a self-driving vehicle in the UK. Congratulations, Nate. Get on out there. Watch your movies.
I don't even drive.
Well, that's good, because there are currently no such vehicles available in the UK.
Yeah. There's some really interesting caveats to this. One is that it has to be, or will have to be, on a screen that is part of the vehicle. So it has to be on a built-in display. It will still be illegal to use your phone in a car.
Wait a minute. You can watch TV, but you can't use your phone?
That's law today. Yeah, it's illegal to use your phone if you're driving.
Yeah, but
even having it in your hand.
Yeah. It seems like watching TV would be equally distracting. Okay.
Well, I think the argument is that if the way that it's written is basically if you're stuck in traffic on a motorway, on a highway, and you're going very, very, very slowly, then it's okay, or rather, then it will be okay, because they want to make sure that you're able to take the wheel if you need to really quickly, and having a phone in your hand means you may be impaired at doing that quickly. I think also the argument is maybe that if you're looking at it on the screen, then you're paying attention to something the car can alert you on as well. Which obviously won't happen on a phone. Right. So there is some logic to it. The other thing that came out as part of this same announcement, though, is that if a self-driving vehicle causes an accident, then it is on the insurer to pay, not the driver, not the manufacturer.
Interesting.
So a lot of the questions are now going to be, well, what insurer is going to insure a self-driving car if they know that if it has a problem, it's on them to pay up. So it's quite interesting.
So, for example, if say Tesla just ran into a multi-million-dollar aircraft because someone used the summon feature.
Oh, did you see that video?
Insure?
That's amazing. Oh my God. Let me see if I can find that.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It was a nice jet too. It was a real, and it wasn't just it hit it. It hit it, and then it obviously didn't know what was happening because it kept pushing it.
It kept going right through it. It's kind of hard to see this. This is the tweet from, or actually it's from the subreddit Flying. Let me start it. Let me start this over again. See if I can make it a little bit bigger on Reddit. So this was at an air show, right? And these are Vision jets, I guess are personal jets.
4.3 million or so.
Here comes the car. Oops. Oh, he's actually turning the jet around, and he doesn't stop until the owner is coming along to stop it. He's using something I had on my Tesla for 3 years and never dared to use, the summon feature, where you press a button and the Tesla slowly drives to come and get you. I never trusted it, and it turns out I was right, although I don't have a lot of jets in my parking in my driveway. But still.
To be fair, who trains a machine learning algorithm for a car on whether it can recognize a plane? If you've got a plane in your field of view in your car, you've got bigger problems.
That's a good point. What did the car think? Oh, I'm imagining it. Oh no, that can't really be there. The Vision jets are $3.5 million. We don't know if the insurance covered the loss or not.
Well, they would here.
Yeah. Well, but so you don't have any full self-driving vehicles there. Even the Teslas don't do FSD there. They don't.
You can do like the lane assist stuff, but we don't have any here yet. But also remember, it's a pretty small country. Like loads of people don't drive here because we just don't need it.
That's sensible. I increasingly feel like it'd be nice if we just banned all personal vehicles in urban centers.
It's extremely expensive to take a car into London.
Yeah,
like
as it should be.
25, 30 pounds a day just to take your car in. So people are like, if I live here, what's the point? Don't need a car.
It's more than that in San Francisco. It's $100 to park.
We have people trolling
not to park,
Teslas
just to be
in
there.
Rome right now.
Oh, you have to pay a fee to get in?
Just to get in. Yeah.
Wow.
Because they don't want you in there. If you want to park, then you're going to need more money. Yeah.
So you have people doing what, Robert? Trolling?
We're trolling Tesla. So that you can buy shirts or jackets that have stop signs printed on the back. And if you're walking in front of a Tesla, it makes the Tesla stop.
At least it stops.
And I've seen it happen 3 or 4 times. It's actually kind of funny.
Actually, the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration is investigating now officially, as of this week, Tesla's autopilot software to see whether it's safe. They've actually launched 2 formal investigations into it. Let's see. I don't have any more details than that, but they are launching the investigation. We'll keep an eye on that. I don't know if I think honestly in this case it's the driver who's responsible if you're using FSD to keep his eyes out for any issues and to take control if there are issues, right? It's not self-driving, really. Well, the name does say full self-driving. If you thought spam was getting better, you are wrong. Spam Americans, according to Axios, are drowning in spam, not just spam email, but spam text messaging, which has now outpaced spam robocalls. As of last month, there were 7.6 billion spam phone calls in the U.S., 11.7 billion spam text messages. And I have to tell you, I'm not surprised because I get calls all the time from very nice people, usually older people, saying, why are they sending me text messages about porn all the time and how do I stop it?
You know, I wonder,
This reminds
I feel
me,
like
Leo.
a lot of this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like a lot of this is probably because a lot of the tech companies have made tools for filtering robocalls over the past few years. Like that technology has gotten better. So I feel like a lot of these scammers are now turning to text messages to do that because it just hasn't caught up as much.
Well, and the FCC has kind of delayed the implementation of the technology that's supposed to stop spam texts and spam phone calls, the stirred and shaken framework. They allowed, the big companies are all doing it, but they can allow through calls from small companies until the end of, I think it's the end of May. Companies, small phone companies with no facilities will have to use stir and shaken to authenticate, which means a phone company say, hey, if you don't say who this is from, we're not going to take it. That will do a lot to stop this. And then I think at the end of the year, small phone companies that have facilities like buildings will have to stop. So I think what's also happening is this is I'm hoping anyway, this is the last gasp for spam texts, because as soon as stir and shaken is implemented, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon can and should legally say, unless you say who you are and you can identify that, authenticate that, we're not going to accept that. I think that'll solve it. I hope.
I hope so. I've been getting so many. I mean, like a lot of people, I've been getting so many of them, especially in the last few months. I feel like it's picked up a lot. So I really hope that
it absolutely
changes.
has, yeah.
So what do we do over here that stops it? I never get spam on my Italian number. I get it all the time on my U.S. number.
Oh, that's interesting.
I never get any either.
What?
Really?
Are we doing something different here? I mean, literally, I nothing.
That's bizarre because it's nonstop, right, Lisa?
Yeah, it's like, I wouldn't say it's daily for me, but it's probably multiple times per week, I would say.
Yeah. I get, of course, you get the calls for your auto warranty is expired, all of that. You get the text messages, just...
tax settlements. I love those.
There's
those
one.
are my favorite.
Yeah.
I get a lot of fake banking ones.
Yeah. It's phishing. They're phishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're phishing scams. Yeah. Well, your phone company's supposed to block it. Let's hope they start doing that soon. And finally, chopsticks to make your food saltier without
I love this.
additional salt. I think you got to make these. Researchers in Japan have developed a set of electric chopsticks. They're attached to a wristband computer. It uses electrical stimulation to transmit sodium ions from the food to the eater's mouth. This is according to Meiji University professor Home Miyashita, who developed the chopsticks with Kirin, who, of course, makes food, soy sauce. I think there's Kirin beer. By the way, this is not his first time to this rodeo, if that's what you call it. He's the guy who designed the Lickable TV.
Yes. Not great, actually.
That would let you taste whatever you see on the screen. The chopsticks do require you to wear, at least in this first iteration, a little wrist computer. Researchers say the chopsticks can enhance the perceived saltiness of foods 1.5 times. So, could be a lifesaver. It certainly is birth control. So either way, you're ahead. And on that note,
I would be willing to test those. I mean, seriously,
I know,
I love
cool.
salt.
Yeah, me too.
Love salt. I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to have it, but I love salt.
Yep. All right, let's do it. Lisa and Chico, you're the greatest. Thank you so much for being here, spending your evening with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me anytime.
Senior editor at CNET. Anything you want to plug?
Just keep checking out CNET. We have a lot of great reviews and news coverage every day. So just, keep checking it out.
Thank you. It's great to have you. It's great to have you. Nate Langston, tech editor at Bloomberg. You stayed up late for us. What is it, 1 in the morning?
It is.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're worth it, Leo.
Thank you. We love having you on. Really appreciate it. Anything you want? Oh, I know what we're going to plug. UK Tech Show. Your podcast.
My podcast. Yeah, Text Message, which is at uktechshow.com.
Get it? Text Message. That's one message you won't want to block.
Yeah, and that's why the URL is uktechshow.com, because it's a play on words that works better written down than it does pronounced.
Right.
And I got sick of saying TECH''S message. I get it now. I get it now. So I just thought, screw it. But yeah, we actually did talk a lot about the self-driving car stuff on the episode that went out earlier today. I think that's episode 272. So I'd love people to check that out and give us a follow if you liked what I say and how I say it.
Great show. Tech goes down better with an English accent, I just have to say. It really does. It sounds smarter.
Thank you.
Posher. Yeah.
It does.
That's why I listen to F1 racing as well. They have the best announcers in F1 racing. The lights are out in Imola.
You like Crofty?
Yeah, he's so good. I love him. So you're becoming an F1 fan as well, huh?
I had been watching F1 for about 8 years.
It's really high tech.
This season.
Yeah. You stopped this season?
Stopped.
Oh, this
because the way last season ended.
No, I know. That's why you got to watch this season. They've made changes in the rules. There's more overtaking. It's much more balanced. There's limits on what they can spend. It's actually, they've transformed the sport. Says somebody who's been watching it.
Same reason why I stopped watching the NFL. You know, if you don't care enough to guard the integrity of your sport, then why should I watch?
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah.
Father Robert Ballister, the digital Jesuit. Padres Corner is back.
It is intermittently, youtube.com/digital Jesuit, or just go to twitter.com/PadreSJ. You're always going to find whatever I'm working on at the time. A lot of stuff, unfortunately, I can't post because I don't really make my own content the majority of the time anymore. But it's fun. You get an inside look of what happens on this corner of the globe.
Are they keeping you busy now doing like priest stuff?
The amount of priest stuff that I do is actually, it's pretty minimal because they need my other skills.
The technical skills.
I do the priest stuff for me because I don't feel right if I'm not consistently getting out there, but they need the technical and the production and the content creation skills. Those are the things that are being used every day.
Oh, that's interesting. So increased social presence, and of course the Vaticats, which we have to show right here.
Yeah, gotta have cats.
Increased social presence for the Vatican, or
for the Society of Jesus, for the Jesuits. And a couple of, I wouldn't call them black, but they're definitely darker projects. Nothing bad, nothing nefarious, but a few things that are going on behind the scenes to find out what's happening around the world.
Some skunkworks stuff going on.
Yeah.
Nice.
Some very interesting work.
Are you enjoying it?
I am. I would prefer to be back in California, as always. I love California. It is my home. But every once in a while, I'll stop and I'll hear the bells of St. Peter's, or I will hear some wonderful music wafting over the city.
I know.
It makes it worth it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
you're always invited.
And you're always invited. We always have a place for you. We're coming to Rome next year, in almost exactly a year from now. So we'll see you late April.
You just let me know.
2023.
We will have a lunch up on top of our roof overlooking Rome. You can literally see all of Rome from my office here.
You'll be able to see us on Google Earth having lunch. If we time it well. I want to come out. I think we're gonna spend at least a week in Rome.
Excellent.
Yeah, we want to spend enough time because we've never been, and I think it'd be really fun just to really get to know the city better. So maybe 2 weeks.
Give me the time, because they're starting to let us do those after-hour tours of the
The
Vatican
catacombs?
museums where they just let us know. They let us in after hours.
Oh, you're kidding.
They basically say, no, those are my favorite. No one else. There's no one else. Just you.
Oh, my goodness. I can give you the exact time, but we won't slow down people's... people want to go home, so...
Of course.
We'll let them go home, and then I will give you the exact time. We do TWiT Sunday afternoons, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. You can watch us, stream it live at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, chat live with us. The IRC chat is open to all. Of course, Club TWiT members get their very own Discord, which, as you are the one who introduced me to Discord, as Father Robert has taught me, is a really wonderful place for community. Club TWiT is $7 a month. It's not just the Discord, though. You get the TWiT Plus feed with things like the Jeff Jarvis Ask Me Anything. Have we done an AMA with you yet, Robert? We better get one of those in.
We've been trying to get one scheduled. The last one got messed up because of COVID, but yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on that. And of course, we thought that the benefit would be ad-free versions of all of our shows. Since you're paying us $7 a month, we don't need to play ads for you. But I think all the other stuff kind of is even better. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to find out more. Twit.tv/clubtwit. After the show is over, you can download on-demand versions of it from the website. All of our shows are at twit.tv or on the YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel for every show dedicated. Or, best thing to do, in fact, get your podcast player and subscribe. That way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available every afternoon or evening, every Sunday evening. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're entering into year 18 now of This Week in Tech. I think we have many great shows ahead for you. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.